Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 295. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I can't believe we did it in two. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
This episode, we're going to finish up our wrap of taking a look at DC Universe in one line only. And actually, half the fun is our reactions just to each of the titles. Because it was interesting. For me, I was in the same boat you were in. We kind of went through and we had to rework our notes a couple of times because as we read more issues in preparation for this, had to change kind of our viewpoint on this. So I'm excited. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, I want to shout out, Jim, they're still doing that DC celebration. All of the 52 number 8 issues, the entire bundle, $80.74. It's 50% off. So you can get, if you're still getting all the books, I mean, 52 titles for $80.74 is a steal. So that's over at DCBService.com. They're also continuing, and I love that they're doing this, and this seems to be a trend that they're doing. So please, not just for DC and Vertigo, look across their site for these bundles. It seems when they have like these new launches through companies, they're doing a lot of these special deals because they're doing it for the Shadow and stuff like that. 75% off those 4 Vertigo titles that are launching. That's Saucer Country, Fairest, The New Dead Guardians, Dominique Laveau, Voodoo Child. Those are those number 2 issues. It's 75% off. I think it's just an amazing deal, and I'm glad they're still doing those type of things. Did you got the first issues of that, right? Because we're going to do those on the show?
Yeah, and I picked up the second ones as well.
So we're going to do the first issues of all 4 of those titles as they come out right on the podcast. So you can look forward to that in the future because we haven't done Vertigo in a while, and I think that's a great way to do it with these new titles being launched if people are taking advantage of those kind of discounts or if there's specific titles that they're interested in. Over at our sponsor, InStockTrades.com. Besides the fact you can get all the Knightfall books, which are going to be on episode 300, 301, and 302, those 3 trades, they've also got DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers, 40% off all of them on the site. They're doing 50% off the archive edition titles. They have up to 80% off a lot of the closeouts on various companies. So go over to InStockTrades.com and really take advantage of the discounts. It's easy to get up to that $50 mark, and then you get free shipping. So it's great for those of you who are like, boy, there's a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to read. I have a tight budget. I want to make sure that I'm fitting into that budget. And this is a great way to do it. Like I'm into The Stand, Stephen King's series, and I've been reading that via hardcover. And they got the Night Has Come premium hardcover. It's 45% off. It's $13.74 for a hardcover.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so for me, I'm like, I eat that up. You know, they're doing the Fables Deluxe Edition hardcover, Volume 4, 40% off, $17.99. I mean, these are, again, hardcover volumes. They also have trade paperbacks. They've got a Hellblazer Phantom Pains trade paperback, 40% off, $8.99. So under $10, $9, you're getting, a Hellblazer trade. This is great, if there's things you've been wanting to try. Power Girl, the old Friends trade paperback, 40% off, $11.99. So, I mean, these are just great deals on these books that you can get at anywhere, from 40% off on up. So, I don't know. I just can't recommend InStockTrades.com enough. Remember, over at DCBService.com, they are a DC Comics digital partner. You earn 5% towards your DCB service order. So, you're already getting discounts, but then you can earn 5% more by doing all your digital shopping through them. It doesn't cost you anything more, but then you get another discount by clicking on them because they're a digital partner. So please consider doing any of your digital shopping through them to up that discount for yourself. In a day and age where comics cost a lot, that's really cool. Jim, I also want to shout out DiscountPartySupplies.com. They are offering a very special party package that is a part of our 300th episode 6-year anniversary contest. More details will be on the end of this podcast episode. But right now, our spoiler warning is from one of the entries for that contest from our friend Eli.
James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are spoiler podcast, going in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot into the comics we're reviewing. So, if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Very funny stuff. All right.
Wait,
Let's
wait.
get going.
What do you mean funny?
Huh?
How am I funny?
What?
Well, funny how? What's funny about it?
Well, I don't know. You're just funny. I just
Wait, let me understand this, because maybe I'm just a little tired or something. But I'm funny how? Funny like a clown? Like I amuse you? Like I'm here to freaking amuse you? What do you mean funny? How am I funny?
Well, you know.
No, I don't know. You said it. You said I'm funny. How am I funny? What the heck is so funny about me? Tell me what's funny.
Well, the way you do the spoiler warning. It's just.
I almost had you there.
Oh. All right. Well, let's talk some comics.
Dude, I was like dying at that. That was from Eli.
That was outstanding, dude. That was ow.
Well, he's become a consistency.
Yes,
Ever since
yes.
we, any anniversary that we do, he usually sends in something funny like that. And please, if you haven't had a chance, please make sure to enter our contest, because this is exactly what I was hoping from this. I was hoping to have a chance for some fun things like this from you guys. Feel free to parody us, parody comics, anything that's on your mind, and participate in that contest. We'll have specific details at the end of the podcast on the contest, but I thought that was a very cool spoiler warning.
Yes, and that is definitely worthy of a. And yes, I did the hand motion.
I'm sure you did.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Jim, there's something I wanted to talk casually with you about. This is kind of impromptu for me and for you. There's been a lot of rumblings and changes of creative teams on a lot of the DC titles. I don't know if you've been paying attention to a lot of that in the solicits that have been coming up.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, they're changing some stuff up here, and it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, let's see what happens, because some of the teams I'm like, I really liked what they were doing, so I'm curious.
It seems early for a lot of these changes. Like, it's kind of a weird time. Like, a lot of these changes are happening like after issue 5, issue 6 on a lot of these titles, because I'm noticing particular only because Jim and I, for this particular sequence, because Jim and I did this independently, we had to figure out a way to make sure that we, as we were doing this episode, were going in the same order. So we went to Newsarama, and the issue 7 solicits from Newsarama is what we've been using for these episodes, these last two. So that way Jim and I were going in the same order, so we weren't like shuffling through notes while we were recording, because makes it a bad experience for you guys. But one thing that I noticed that was a consistency, there's a lot of creative team changes on these titles, and some of them are titles that I'm really digging. And actually, it affected. We both changed a lot of our notes as we've been going along, because as we've read new issues on these titles, some of our thoughts and feelings have changed. So actually, some of my notes did change along the way based on some of the creative changes, just because I wanted to comment on them. So this will be something kind of organically, as we're talking about these issues, we'll probably be bringing up in the second half of our exploration. Jim, Green Lantern. Let's talk about this book. What was your line for it?
Where have all the good men gone, and where are all the gods? Where's the streetwise Hercules to fight the rising odds?
Wait, I forgot you were doing song titles. Or songs in general. That's really funny.
I have always had kind of a romantic view of the Green Lantern Corps when it's the story's being told through Hal's eyes.
Yeah.
Now, by romantic, I'm not talking, hey, how you doing? I'm talking like the romantic style of literature where the hero rushes in to save the day, last minute, death-defying, unsurmountable odds, and just all that kind of, that moments, those hoorah, true hero moments. And I've always seen that with the Green Lantern. So that song always just rings true to me whenever I think of those, the rushing to the last minute, saving the day. And it's funny because having Sinestro in the title has not only shaken this image, but it's also reinforced it. Because we're still getting to see how Hal reacts and deals with this present situation. But we've got the sweet bonus of having these really cool Sinestro moments thrown in.
I get that from The Flash, too. That feeling that you're talking about. It's kind of funny. I think that's something that's, to me, it's a theme of DC that's been since my childhood. Those type of heroes. I think over the years we've seen, some diversification of the characters where not everybody's that dun dun dun. But I mean, that's the way a Batman was when I was a kid. That's the way Superman was when I was a kid. Wonder Woman. They were those type of heroes. And I think it's important that you have heroes like Hal and Barry that feel that way that you're talking about. So I loved that commentary by you, because it wasn't something I was thinking on the outside, but the second that you met, I'm like, wow, that at the core really does sum up what I think thematically is a unique thing of the DC universe. My line was, a reminder that no matter how long characters have been around, there are always new areas to explore. I'm loving the exploration of both Sinestro and Hal. Whenever you hear people retiring from a career that has been so much a part of their life, that is often a part of them, it's like they wonder what's going to come next. Yet there's also a part of them that longs for those things that they needed to deny themselves of due to time or conflict with that career. The situation with Hal and Carol feels so natural. He loved being a Green Lantern and devoted his life to it. In recent storytelling, we see that it became his everything. But with his ring taken away, he's had to examine a life without the ring. He's been without the ring in the past, but it was never like this. Never when he was healthy physically and mentally. There was always something that drove his losing the ring. Now imagine looking forward to a new life with the one that you've loved, this thing that you've denied yourself of, embracing that, and really saying, wow, I can do this. This is finally my chance for this, love, but being pulled back at the whim of your old enemy. Not just being pulled back into that life, not just being given a chance to be in that life, but you really are now you are the man, the Green Lantern, the headliner. Now you're pulled back in as the sidekick of your old enemy. I mean, I'm eating up this Hal story, but besides that, there's this great exploration of Sinestro. It's hard to pin down exactly what he is. Is he a villain? He's certainly not what I'd call a hero, yet on some level he sees himself still as this greatest of the Green Lanterns. Does he feel genuine guilt, or maybe not guilt, but some remorse over his choices with Korugar? Or is it that this feeling that his people don't see and appreciate his true intentions? He's such an interesting emotional puzzle. Regardless of how we all view Sinestro, he's interesting because of that. And that's something I'm finding really engaging. I'm a Hal junkie. I love Hal for everything you just said. And actually, it's funny, the song that you picked, I gotta say, you nailed it. And the theme and feel, that is something. Why do I still like DC characters after all this time? There's something unique about them that you don't get very often. And it is part of their legacy, and it is characters like Hal. They're real heroes, tried and true. They're your dun-dun-dun guys that you always talk about. That there's something about him that fits that category. Yet I like the twist of Sinestro in this book. It's a nice balance. That's the best way to put it, and I'm really digging this title. I didn't think Sinestro, could carry it, and I don't know that I want to see Sinestro gone from his role anytime soon. I do want to see Hal get the ring back, though.
Yeah, I do want to see that. I'm enjoying those exact moments you're talking about, where he's got to be the lackey, sidekick, flunky to his ancient enemy that you got to have question as to what is Sinestro's true motivation. But I want to see that moment when Hal and Sinestro are on even ground. When Hal's got his own ring, Sinestro has a ring, and that's the moment I want to see between the two of them. And when Hal's back to being the Guardian, the Green Lantern for 2814, and just where does this go? How does this go? What are these two? How do they deal with each other?
Next book, Jim?
Green Lantern Corps. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. Hurrah, Semper Fi! I tell you, Green Lantern Corps is my favorite Green Lantern title. I was just raving about how much I love Green Lantern, but Green Lantern Corps is my favorite. And it's not just because John Stewart is an absolutely awesome Lantern, which he is, but I always get that spirit of Corps from the Green Lantern Corps. I love seeing these other Lanterns work together, improvise, adapt, overcome some massive odds, and just how they deal, how they approach the problem. I really just, always am excited about Green Lantern Corps.
The Corps has a rich, long history as the Green Lantern team book. It's hard for me to pin down exactly what the Green Lantern Corps means to me. It's this book, intensity is kind of the word that comes to mind. It's like really my line, what I really wanted in my line was just to say the word intensity. Because every page I turn in Tomasi's writing is, and actually, you know what, I'm going to knock out everything I said before. My line is intensity. Because that was the one thing that captivated me in reading the Corps. Because I went back and I reread like the last 4 issues of this book in preparation for this episode, and there's some things I really want to point out that I thought are interesting. And it really is, one thing I noticed, every page turn is this feeling of intensity. Sure, it's exploring this unexplored area of the Green Lantern universe, but I don't know if it's with you. This book, I have a lot of times trouble saying that this isn't my favorite Green Lantern title. I think it might be, because every issue, I just want to know what's going to happen next. War often forces hard choices. I love the idea of a bargain made with a world to house the power batteries in exchange for the richness it will bring to that world and the lives of those that live there. But what happens if that gift's taken away? Not only taken away, but ripped away with no chance for transition to something new, to something stable. Your planet loses everything. What would you do as a race? How would you combat that bitterness and obsession? I mean, this has taken the lore of the Green Lanterns and added a very dark twist to the whole thing. What we knew before is that, you go back to what you were talking about when Green Lantern, with that dun-dun-dun, that hero rushes in to save the day, but the darkness that's behind that being able to rush in to save the day now, that has been tainted by this type of thing, is something I'm finding compelling and interesting. The Guardians, like, I want to take each one of the Guardians and slap them across the face, Mo, Larry, and Curly style. I mean, it's like really, like, one of the cool things that I'm enjoying about this is that weird balance of duality of loving the Corps as a concept, but hating the Guardians now. And I'm really at that point right now where, like, I want to punch buggy all of them.
Oh, God, yeah. I so want to just, drop kick those little guys and just get rid of them and say, you know what? The Corps would be better off if you weren't around. And it's kind of funny to say that about the Guardians who formed this, they formed the Corps. They are the birth of it. If it wasn't for them, there would be no Green Lantern Corps. But as time has gone on, these guys have they've lost touch with what they need to do and how they need to do it, and it's really neat to see. Your first indicator was when they booted Hell out. He saves the day, saves the universe, and they reward him by taking away his ring. Now we find out that these power batteries used to be housed at this planet, but the Guardians just ripped it out with no consideration towards the race there. Now then you get the lobotomization of Ganthet. There's just time and time again, the Guardians have proven that, it's that question: are they actually good? We sit there and we explore Sinestro's intentions and Sinestro's, character. Is he a good guy? Is he a villain? The question now is heavily raised with the Guardians: are they good guys now, or are they something that needs to be stopped?
Yes. They're something that needs to be stopped. Yes. But I love those old lanterns who meet below warriors and are pulled back into service. I love that concept because it shows a longevity of the Corps that's not often explored. Officers do age and slow down, yet they have an experience to bring to the table that would be huge in this situation where there are many green, pun intended, recruits. And it was, it's funny, like every page turn in this series, it's why I stumbled over my line because I was trying to add to it. I think my line for this book, more than any other, has changed as I've been doing it. And I really just think the word intensity fits because I can't stop, like, the use of earth weapons, a Sinestro Corps Fear stink bomb, and to give them this edge against an enemy that was coming at them with everything was just amazing, because this enemy was really built to be this unstoppable enemy. They would climb over their own dead just to keep coming at them. Intense is an important word because this book is just plain gripping. So I will say my line is intensity. That's what this, one word, intensity. When I read this, I just can't wait to turn the page. I really hate when an issue ends because I just want more. John Stewart shines here because he's had multiple times to make tough decisions, and he's had to kill twice Corps members.
Yeah.
The important part is in both cases he did it for the good of the universe as a whole. If he hadn't had done it in this case, would Guy have succeeded? Now, there's an interesting debate, because if they got that code, would they have gone right to Oa and pulled the battery? What would have happened then? Or would Guy have succeeded anyway and gotten them out, and John wouldn't have had to do what he did? Because John couldn't have known they were coming. The situation looked hopeless. Will John have to live with that? And I love that complication of that situation, because I totally believe John did the right thing. Yet, as with making any tough decision like that, especially where it's a decision to end a life, there are consequences. And the consequences, even if you're totally forgiven, you have to live with that. And for Jon Stewart, we've seen he isn't just okay with it because he's human. And that's something I find that I connect with in him. He makes tough choices, but then it isn't just a case of the ends justifying the means. He has to live with the real pain of the choices. I'm finding him so compelling because of that. I think it's something that's true to his character to make those choices, but it's a terrific development that I'm seeing with him, and I'm glad to see him spotlighted in this way. Not just for the fact that he's killing corn. It's not like I want that to be his thing. He's the guy that kills. He's the guy that. Wait, another 6 issues. You're going to kill somebody else.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. It's in this particular case, in this particular combat scenario, it makes sense with where John was that he would do that, and it is the soldier aspect of him that I'm really digging. Like, that's standing out there, and I'm going to be curious to see. And I like the fact that some of the core members are behind what he does. Other core members are not, and it's affecting his relationships with the core. But yet he's staying true to who he is, and still being a leader in these tough situations. And I love how the guy who was with him backed him up.
Yeah.
I love when the story came, John was ready to start revealing everything to Guy right then and there. And I love that the guy recognized this is not the time and the place. With what we're in the middle of at the moment, this is not the time to do it. You did the right thing there. And that's in that one line where he basically told the story, that they all died because of the situation and being tortured and all that. With him backing up John and providing a story there at the moment so they didn't have to deal with that. He was saying basically, hey, you did the right thing. I'm backing you up, buddy. Let's just get back to work and do what we do because we've got a bigger situation than this. And that's something that I know we're going to deal with that. I know from the solicits in an upcoming issue we're going to deal with John's having to tell the family what happened. And that's something that I want to read. And see his reactions. I'm going to find that compelling. But I love that moment on the battlefield where, the comrade who was there with him, who saw it happen, knew that John did the right thing and backed him up and protected him. I think that's important. I think there's a story to be told there. And seeing that leadership was something that, this guy, when the story comes out or whatever, he's going to still back up John. Yeah. And I find that stuff neat, when people are in battle and stuff. Because those are, it's, unless you're there, unless you were faced with that situation, unless you saw that if these guys got that code and they got through and they took the battery, it would end the universe as we know it. He made that decision based on, this is all the only choice I've got.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing to, one, to deal with and a story to tell with the fallen comrade and the fact that what he had to do, but just that dealing with the family, that, it's one of those things I can't wait to read it, but I know it's going to tear me up because of just the realism behind it. This is, the emotional level, the character level that they're dealing with John, they're not shying away from any of that. And that's something that really does also make this my favorite Green Lantern title because, they're not glossing over it. They're addressing everything that you would naturally think would happen from this supernatural environment. And they're making it really down to earth and very realistic. And there is a touch of, the heartstrings touch of the emotion. There's a lot coming from this. And this is something that the future stories I'm so looking forward to just because of that. But I'm also going, man, this is going to be tough to read through because there is an emotional connection for me.
I love even with the Sinestro Corps guys, when they dropped them off as a bomb.
Yeah.
I love that was something that, with Salak, there was a big debate going on there. Morality and consequences of actions. They're doing all this stuff behind the Guardians' backs. And I just love the way that this is being handled. That you even got Salak, who had to say at that point, "You're right. You got to do this." You know, it was, he regretted saying it. You know, it was a tough thing for him to do, but even he backed that up. There was something interesting about that whole scenario. This was a wartime decision, and they could not wait. They needed to move now. And look what would have happened if they had been just a little bit later. John and the other guy would have been captured again. I don't know. This book, the intensity is really it's funny. I stumbled over my line on purpose because I'm like, even now when I've written this whole thing out, I'm trying to add words in because I don't feel it says anything. This is one of those things where this book is a page turner for me. When I read this book, I can't wait to get to the next page. When it ends, I want more pages. I want to know more. The villains that they set up in this, ninja willpower wielding dudes like that. I don't know. It just looked so cool to me because they weren't all flash. There was substance to their story. I mean, when you go back to the psychological intensity of their story, and then the fact that there were people behind the scenes who were using power to keep them, using their own people to keep themselves alive so that they could push this agenda of theirs to the point that they were sacrificing their own dead. The resolution of that, what Guy had them do, I mean, you know, burying their own dead and that being their sentence, you know, I mean, whoa. Just deep, and you know these guys aren't going to go away. They're back, you know, at some point, and they're going to be more dangerous than ever. I just loved the way this storyline played out. You know, it's very rare in comics nowadays that you get a villain, a compelling villain, that you're wondering how is the hero team, especially a team as powerful as the Corps, going to overcome it. And I did not know. I didn't see how this resolution was. I think that's what I loved about the most recent issue, was that there was such a build to this villain that when you got that payoff finally, and you saw all of the lines that were being crossed in order to make that happen, and why they had to do it, and the debates that went along with that, and, you know, Guy talking to Kilowog and looking for this old guard, you know, these real hardheads that were more like him. You know, it's really what he was looking for. He was looking for guys who were like-minded to him, who were going to go in and do what he wanted, you know, what he was going to do, what he needed to do at that moment. It was a great Guy moment, too. I love that these lanterns are, you know, these Earth lanterns that we've all loved. You know, there's a lot of John Stewart fans out there. There's a lot of Guy Gardner fans out there. There's a lot of Hal Jordan fans out there. And there's a lot of Kyle Rayner fans out there. And I think one thing that can be commended to all of the Green Lantern writers right now, they're doing a great job of taking those four characters and keeping them very unique to each other. Like, there's not one of them that feels like the other. They've each got their own little, you know, personality, their own little backstory, and they're being spotlighted. John Stewart, I think, is the one benefiting the most at the moment from starting to be spotlighted again, because he's a character that I feel like writers haven't known what to do with. I don't think it's a matter of writers not liking him or not. I think with any character, you got to have a story for somebody. And it's great to see Tomasi really taking an opportunity to have this character shine.
Yeah.
You know, and have a story that's compelling where you're like, I want to see what the reaction is going to be of John. How is John going to... Because we know John's going to overcome this. Because he has already. He did it with Mogo. But I love that it's something that it haunts him, as it would any person. And I don't know, there's something about that, the fact that he keeps pressing on in spite of being haunted by all this, that I'm finding compelling. Obviously, by the amount I'm rambling on about this book, this is easily my favorite Green Lantern title.
Yeah.
It's a great book. It's a cool book. Our next book, Green Lantern New Guardians, Jim.
While I think the creative team would create a good book with somebody else in the title role, I don't think the book would be as good without Kyle. That's my one line.
Okay. Well, I figured that, but anything else you want to say?
Well, it's funny because I wasn't really a huge Kyle Rayner fan. You know, for me, you know, Hal, John, Guy, then Kyle was always at the bottom of the runnings. And it's not even just a knock on him. It just, I really enjoyed the other characters, and I wasn't reading when Kyle was the main Green Lantern. I wasn't reading through all that. So any exposure I get to Kyle is a building on, you know, nothing. You know, so it's, you know, the creation of my understanding towards him. And this title, I really enjoy Kyle in the lead of it. And, you know, I'm kind of, you know, I like how he approaches things a little bit differently than, like, with each of the Earth Lanterns. All look at a problem, they all deal with it differently. But I'm liking how his mindset and where this is going, and I am excited to see where this title is going to go to.
Kyle Rayner carried the Green Lantern universe for a number of years, and this book embraces why. I'm a big Kyle fan, and I think the difference between you and me on that one is I read a lot of solo Kyle when I read when he gained the ring, because I was reading that whole Hal Jordan becomes Parallax story that I read when Kyle took over, and I stuck with the book for a long time. My budget eventually didn't let me, so I had to step away for a bit. But then over the years, I liked the character so much, I gradually got the issues that I missed. So I've got a complete run. I'm glad he didn't get lost in the shuffle of Hal's return, because this book spotlights what works for him as a Lantern, as Ian, and for so long as a solo Lantern. He's a very human character. He's an everyman. He's been given this ring of power and explores it the way I think we hope we all would. If that was instantly dropped on us. There's something neat about him, because I think unlike the other three, he feels like one of us. And there's something about that I like. And I don't know if that's something you get as much as I did, because when you read him, his getting the ring was an accident. Like, Ganthet showed up on Earth and Kyle happened to stumble out at that point in time, and he got the ring. They've now revamped that in the New 52, his story, and given him more of he was selected for that role. But it's something I still hold on to, the fact that Kyle, that accident part of it, is something, and that every man, I think, is still there even with the revamp. I don't think they lost his personality in the revamp of his origin. I think it's still there. When you match him up then with these other Lantern color core, you see the way that, like, I think we would see those people. We're seeing them from his perspective. That's like, again, kind of the everyman kind of thing. The art's always sharp on this title. It continues to surprise me at how interesting and exciting it is, because Kyle's perspective just tends to feel natural. It's a tone that's different. I don't know if you get that tone different that I do. Maybe that's just something I'm getting because of my years of reading him. I don't know if you feel the same way about him that I do. That, to me, is what's unique about Kyle. He feels more like, like you could hang out with Kyle and have a cup of coffee and just chat comic books and art and things like that. And Kyle would, fit right in there. Whereas the other characters feel a little larger than life. And I don't know if you get that vibe from him, but I do.
Well, I definitely get that, friendly, everyman type of vibe from Kyle. And what you're saying about sitting down, having a coffee with him, chatting art, and talking comic books, and just the general, just the hang, I definitely get that from Kyle. And I completely agree with you in that sentiment.
I think it's just something, I think that's something that I, again, applaud all the writers. You got Tony Bedard, Peter J. Tomasi, and of course, Jeff Johns writing these characters, and they're all unique. There's 4 Earth Lanterns, and there's nothing cookie cutter about them. Kyle isn't Hal Light. Kyle is the everyman. He's different. There's something unique about him. This artist that has made it as a Green Lantern, that there's something I just like about him that's different. Next book, Jim?
Red Lanterns. With blood and rage of crimson red, ripped from a corpse so freshly dead, together with our hellish hate, we'll burn you all. That is your fate.
It's a little scary.
I had to recharge my ring.
Yeah. We're never doing the show live again with you here.
This is a cool and fun title for me, which is a very weird statement considering these are creatures of rage spewing flaming blood from their mouth. But I do have an odd sense of humor. Now, one of the things that I've digged about the Red Lantern, the title itself, is not only just the exploration of what is the Red Lantern, it's the development of their personalities. And the fact that to give them more of their personality back has a deeper consequences. And there are, actions behind, there's cause effect. There is consequences to your actions. There is a little bit more to this than just flaming blood spewing from mouth, rage, kill them all. There is something nicely fleshed out in the Green Lantern mythos, in this story, in this title. This is a very nicely fleshed out part of the Green universe, and not only does this have me wanting more from Red, but I want this from the other colors as well.
Peter Milligan, enough said for me. I adore Peter Milligan, and when this book was announced, he's more of a Vertigo guy for me. I've enjoyed his Vertigo work. I knew this book would be special. He has a great way of exploring character, and that's so necessary when launching a Fourth Lantern title. What makes this book unique? It's not just about exploring rage. It's about exploring what it is like for Atrocitus and Bleeze, who are alert. Also, like for Atrocitus, as he analyzes choosing one person's rage over another, which is the right one to validate? Does vindicating one make the other that you create from that less valid? And I love that. Like he resolves these situations, brings about this kind of revenge for the rage type of thing. But I love that he looks at the other side of it and goes, did I make the right choice? And is that new rage any less valid than the rage I just quenched? There's something to be said about all that. I love that kind of deep exploration. I love when you were doing your explanation, you were doing like the broken words that they do, how that rage kind of gets them to the point where they don't have like full speech. And I think that's something that's interesting about the Red Lanterns is I didn't know that when they were introduced way back when in the Green Lanterns, that there was this hierarchy as far as who was coherent and who wasn't. I didn't realize that Atrocitus was set. I knew Atrocitus was set aside as their leader, a la Sinestro was to the Sinestro Corps, but I didn't recognize that Atrocitus was more alert and with it, other than the fact that you saw him communicate more with the others. But I didn't take it that it meant something. I like that there is that hierarchy there. And what happens, because eventually more of them, as the series goes on, are going to become alert. What is that going to mean? Because Bleeze has got her own issues going on. So it's going to be an interesting book as it's developed. I like this because to me, it feels like, yes, it's a part of the Green Lantern universe, yet it doesn't. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but and I mean that as a compliment in the sense that this book, I feel, can be firmly read on its own. You do not need to be a Green Lantern reader to read Red Lanterns. It's its own unique title. I don't need to read it in any particular order relating to the Green Lantern books. It's got its own story arc going on. Yet, as reading the Green Lantern books, I feel it's a richer exploration of that whole universe. But I like its kind of unique self-contained nature as well. It works on both levels, and I think that's really important. It's something I've always liked about the Batman titles over the years. My favorite runs have been where you've got multiple Batman titles, but each one of them feels unique and valid. And it's especially true of the books featuring his supporting cast, where these are characters who, in their own right, have become superstars of their own titles. This is working here in the Green Lantern universe. I'm using the Batman comparison because my whole life I've been a Batman junkie, and this Green Lantern universe right now is every bit as rich and as valid as the Bat books. And for me, who is mainly a Batman guy, I find these books just as compelling. If I had to pare down, I would have a hard time if I had to cut down to 5 books, taking the Green Lantern books out of that mix. As a Batman guy, I think I would, just because, I would have to go with it and say, well, I'm a Batman guy. I've got to have some Batman titles in that mix. But, would I have a tough time paring these books down because they're just so good. And the creative talent, you've got 4 writers on 4 different titles here who are people who I've liked for years writing these books. So you can't argue with the talent that they've got behind these titles. It's just something, I don't know, that I'm finding engaging.
There are times when I just like to sit back and listen to you go. Because, I'm listening to you go. I'm like, I'm nodding my head like an idiot going, oh, yeah, Jim, this is an audio medium. This isn't visual.
Well, I did that, too, for a lot of years, though, this one. It was funny how, I don't know what it is about this one. Your song choices for this one, for some reason, I'm making less comments about them because I'm just kind of I'm kind of nodding along too. Whereas I think I was taken aback on the last episode by the song. I'm like, he did what with them? He did which I thought was so bizarre. But now I've had a week to digest it. Oh, this is what he's doing. And I think I'm paying more attention now to them on a different way. I'm liking some of the ones you're choosing. Justice League Dark.
It's taken me time to get adjusted to the DCU Magic Universe, but it's time well spent. I'm digging this. I really digged the ending of that first arc, and I have to say I'm more than curious about the next arc. So this title for me has done some really good job of building and developing and just getting me ready for the ongoing story. And even with a large lack of knowledge that I have I'm not lost. I'm not confused. I'm not like, I don't know about it. I'm excited for Justice League Dark, and I want to see where this goes. I want to, delve into it a little bit more and get an understanding for these people.
It's actually, I don't know about you, before I do my line, I don't know about you, I'm finding that my worries for a lot of these lesser-known characters getting lost in the big-name characters, because I'm enjoying them, but some of these characters are just taking me a longer time to get used to because they're characters that I don't have the history with. So I'm finding like I'm spending issues getting to know them, enjoying getting to know them, but these books are staying kind of like middle of the stack only because they're characters who I don't know as well. So, I'm getting to know them, I'm building a relationship. That relationship takes time. Like, they're not books that I want to drop by any way, shape, or form. They're very well produced. This is a great example of that, because my line is, this book reminds us of how unique a Magic team can be. I loved Shadowpact because of the team dynamics that were so different than a traditional superhero team. You got Shade, Xanadu, Constantine, Zatanna, Enchantress, Deadman. They all have different philosophies and backgrounds. The sense of heroism versus we're not afraid to cross the lines is different between each one. And there's some that you're like, I don't know if I'd even call them a hero. You know what I mean? I don't know what you do. There's that weird, bizarre, like, yet you do feel like they're on the good guy's side, with the end result of the whole thing, but they've seen darkness and have been influenced by it. And I love the richness of this title. The tragic story of June and how it keeps these characters from coming together is something that I really find engaging, because the end of the arc, I'm with you. They're like all disgusted by the whole thing. And I love that felt natural to the story. Like, it wasn't one of those, the team split up and there's no, it's just this one little event that made them go. There was a compelling story that made you say, were they ever really a team, or were they just heroes that just happened to be together, or heroes, or whatever you want to call them, that happened to be together at the same time or place? That's something you only get in a Magic story like this. I'm glad it has a Justice League label to it, because it's a title I fear would have less chance of people trying it without it. Yet my hope is that those who did see it for the real unique experience that it is, because this is how to do a different team book. Shadowpact was a book I loved. And I'm not saying this is like a clone of Shadowpact, but it has what I liked about Shadowpact. It's a different sort of team book. And, I'm reading the whole line, and if you're going to give me another team book, it's got to make it feel fresh and unique and different. I love that this is going to have some kind of crossover coming up with iVampire. That's natural. And I'm hoping for both of those books that some of the readers that maybe aren't reading either title will find a link between those books, in the sense that this supernatural universe is something where they can, jump from one book to the other and maybe start picking up a title that they weren't. Because these are books that I'm finding that I really like. Justice League Dark is a book. Peter Milligan hit a home run with this. I know he's leaving the title, but I think it's Jeff Lemire that's taking over again on this one, because Milligan's moving to Stormwatch. So I thought it was Jeff Lemire that's taking over Justice League Dark, and I'm not 100% sure on that at the moment. I don't have that in front of me, but I know Milligan's leaving, and he's going to Stormwatch is the shift that's happening, which is great. I think Milligan's going to be fantastic on Stormwatch. If it is Lemire coming to this book, great choice, because I think he's going to be great on this title. This is a team book that has become pretty important to me, and it is one of those, it's still kind of middle of the stack for me. I don't mean that as an insult, though. I think it really is an issue of characters that have been either seriously revamped or that are newer to me. I need some time to get to know them. I'm enjoying these books. They tend to wait a little bit longer during my week because I haven't gotten to know them as well as my other characters, so I'm jumping to those, like a Green Lantern Corps is a great example of that, because I'm very familiar with those characters, and I'm anxious to see what's happening with them next. But this is not a book that, I want to drop on any level. I'm really enjoying it. It's different. It's fresh. You talk about palate cleansers all the time. I don't know. I don't want to overuse that term, but I think one of the things that, and I'm not saying you do, I'm just, you'll throw it out from time to time to describe certain books of yours that give you something fresh. And that's what this book does. I read a lot of comics, and, to validate reading something new or having something different on the stack, I started reading The Goon recently from Dark Horse. it's a very unique title. It's something different than what I'm reading right now in a lot of my DC reading. So this is like that kind of book. It's something that's different in my DC reading. Fallen Angel from IDW, that used to be a DC book, and IDW took it over. Whenever there's a new miniseries coming out from that, I jump on it right away because it's something that's different. It's a little fresh. That's why I like, Buffy, and I read Star Wars books and stuff like that. They're unique. This one fits that. I don't know. It's just, it's something, I don't know how important it is for other people, but I would say if you're not finding a home run with all of your titles you're reading right now, try some of these unique titles that DC's putting out, because it's one of the things I think the New 52 has benefited with in the relaunch. There's a lot more diverse types of titles, different categories. I think, for me, supernatural characters in particular seem to have really benefited from the relaunch, because this was not something I felt we had a lot of in the 52 or whatever you want to call the line, the pre-New 52 line. And they're characters that I'm finding really engaging, especially our next book, which is
Swamp Thing. Yeah. There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. The Animals' House of the Rising Sun is a very nice, creepy song. And for me, I think that's a spot-on description of this book. Nice and creepy. I'm really, really digging Swamp Thing, and it's something that I had absolutely no exposure to, no understanding for, no history or whatnot with it, but every issue is pulling me farther and farther into the story, to the point where I'm looking up past issues, I'm looking up past stories, I'm looking up, just want more Swamp Thing out of this, and I'm really, really loving this story.
Scott Snyder has embraced the story of Abby and Alec and made it into a stellar tragedy. Like you, I don't have a ton of exposure to Swamp Thing. I have more exposure through team-ups and guest appearances in books. I've also read single issues of Swamp Thing throughout the years. It was just one of those things, budget-wise, I never had the ability to really follow Swamp Thing. Well, now I've picked up, they've been releasing Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, the Saga of Swamp Thing, as these hardcover editions, and I've been picking them up. I can't recommend them highly enough. They also released in that DC Classics, that archive series that they were doing, they released the Len Wein stuff, some of the initial Len Wein stuff as well. So these are things in hardcover you can get. If you're digging this character right now, it's easy to grab some of the older material in beautiful hardcover editions. So I highly recommend that for people that haven't had a chance to pick up some of that work, because it was Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. So, you're dealing with, two stellar names right there who've really touched on this character. And it's really one that I'm embracing, kind of seeing the history of the character, thanks to Scott Snyder's terrific story. I love how this book kicked off by connecting us with both Alec and Abby as people. One the headliner for the green and one for the rot. Yet, you feel like there's this romance going on between the two. These opposites attract, yet you can't help but rally behind them. And they connect over trying to avoid their roles. They find like a love of sorts in that. Now, here's my question, though. If both eventually embrace their roles, can their relationship that they've developed so far bring some form of balance? And I find that intriguing.
That's going to be a tough one. You think about it, just if, she completely embraces the rot and completely embraces it, will she still remain who she was? Will she not? Is it one of those things that will be a completely overtake her character, take over her soul, take over her personality, where she won't be, this wonderful person that she was? She'll be this thing of destruction.
I don't know. That's one of the things that I'm with you. It's not an easy story.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's one of the things that I find compelling about it. I can't help but wonder, is it going to be something good or bad? Will they continue fighting it? What happens if one embraces and the other doesn't?
Well, he's trying to, and she's trying to fight it, but it's not happening. And this is something that I started thinking off page about. Kind of the whole Romeo Juliet, star-crossed lovers. Is this, can they be together? The Buffy Angel thing. There's so many different, stories out there that I've read and experienced that have very similar themes, that it's something I like about Swamp Thing. The fact that this isn't just about a veggie guy who fights, things that are trying to destroy the environment. This is about, there is a little complications behind being part of the Green. There's complications with her being part of the Rot. There is, there's going to be some things handled a little bit differently for them. And I don't think we'll ever get a clean what is going on between them. I don't think we'll ever have that moment where it's just that nice, simple, easygoing, everything's, set in one line. I think that's something I'm enjoying about Swamp Thing. It's something I'm enjoying about the future of the story that I don't think we'll ever get a clean ending, a clean break.
There's something rich about that, because I guess for me, I never had enough reading of Swamp Thing to know how much a part of this character's history this is. This is very true to classic Swamp Thing. And I guess one of the things from listeners who've made mention to me that Abigail was actually a part of the Swamp Thing history, and she was, an enemy of his, and there was a relationship that was there previously. That's stuff I want to read. I want to see what that was like before. But I love that this series has really provided a great jumping on point for, and I'm hoping it's just as engaging for classic readers of Swamp Thing. I'm hoping that those people are still enjoying this just as much, even though it's a reboot. There's something that's interesting, and everything that I'm reading about Swamp Thing, the books that I'm reading right now as I'm gradually making my way through, this does feel like that it's kind of okay for this character to have kind of a quote-unquote reboot, because the way that they've done it, there's kind of this haze as far as what was Alec's life like beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, there's like this hinting that everything that happened before may have happened, but like it's now happening to Alec. You know what I'm talking about? There's like that kind of this. It's funny how this explanation's hazy, but it works because it's Swamp Thing. Are you getting that vibe?
Oh, big time. And it's, again, it's kind of a funny thing with, this is a title that is one of those perfect titles for the New 52 because of the vagueness, because of the haze, because of this unknown factor. The previous Swamp Thing iterations all could have happened, but it's not like he was mainstream public media. It's like the adventures and things that happened to Swamp Thing didn't make, the Daily Planet, didn't make, the Gotham, Gazette or whatever the Gotham newspaper is. It's something that kind of happened behind the scenes of the universe. So the previous period before Superman comes out and makes the superhero universe known to people could have all happened, and I like that, and I enjoyed that. And again, it's something I wasn't lost or confused with this because the way they played it out, the way they told the story out, I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm good. Let's keep moving. All right. Next title is Demon Knights. And I tell you, I flat out love this book. Whenever I'm reading it, I picture myself riding along with the heroes, and there's just this childlike enthusiasm that I'm feeling from it. And it's weird because I really wanted to come up with a song for this one. And I was going through different ideas, and there is like, so much that I was like, no. And I was laughing at myself with how hard I was working at coming up with a song. And I flat out didn't end up with one because I figured I'd just start babbling and going on incessantly about this book that I'm like, I don't need a song to annoy people. My mindless babble will do it, plenty for me. But these are characters that I don't really know. Mm-hmm. I don't really understand or didn't get, and some of them are brand new introductions, and that's okay. This story was one of the ones that really told that first issue really was a wonderful jumping on point, a really beginning of the story, the beginning of the tale. Yes, all these characters have back histories. Yes, we're going to see some swerves along the way and little surprises here and there, but as they're playing out, you're getting them. It's beautiful pacing. This is something that was just one of those from the New 52 that I was like, thank you for this book. This is outstanding, and this is amazing.
Why, Vandal, why? That was my line. Because I so loved him a part of the team, and I'm not entirely sure that he can't be again. This book remains a huge surprise for me in both quality and cool factor. I think this is one of the best of the launch titles of the new ones, because with you, these are characters I don't know. I know the Demon from guest appearances and stuff like that. I've read certain titles, like I read Blood of the Demon by John Byrne. I've read a trade here and there of like things like Garth Ennis's work and stuff, which are terrific. But I've never followed like ongoings with the Demon where I've been reading it like month in, month out. I love that this feels like an early Stormwatch with hints of Merlin watching the storms and references to the Demonites. You know, DC always has had a rich history. I'm a fan of the work of J.R.R. Tolkien and Terry Brooks. And what I like about fantasy fiction like that is this sense of history, that there is a history to that world. And the books that you've read are, you know, there might even be a history beforehand that they're alluding to in those books. And that these are writers who've crafted that history. We're seeing the history of DC unfolding here. We're a part of it. I love that Vandal's turn made sense, yet I really did not want to see it happen. I could also see him rejoin when Mordru and the Queen try to punish him, like they're mentioning in the book. And there's something about that. I love the whole team. I love the good guys. Again, there's that question mark on some people. I love that there's an Amazon presence in this whole thing, but it's an outcast Amazon. I love that we're learning more of this mystery of the Arrow Woman on the horse. You know, like she can't get off the horse because she won't be able to walk otherwise. You know, and that's the horse really is her legs, but that, you know, she's just got her own backstory that we're going to find more of over time. Shining Knight was, I thought, a great Grant Morrison reboot when he did that with the character, and I love that we're finding out more of that character in this story as well. Xanadu, obviously, playing both sides of the field, and that it looked before like you didn't know for sure whose side she was on when it came to the Demon and Jason Blood, but we see now what's really going on there, and I've loved how that's gradually unfolded. But it's taking characters and concepts that always were hinted at having a long-term history in DC and really fleshing out and telling those stories in a fantasy book that I think really appeals, the Terry Brooks, J.R.R. Tolkien audience, I think could really jump on this R.A. Salvatore. And I mean, the guy who did Drizzt Do'Urden, I don't know, I'm probably mispronouncing that name. I don't know if you've read any of that stuff from the Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms line. I don't know, I'm into that kind of stuff. I like swords and sorcery stuff, and it's cool to have that set in the DC universe where it feels like things that happen in this book are going to have real impact on present day. I think there's things happening here that we're going to see play out in a cool way. And I'm glad that Paul Cornell's writing this, because I think he's just doing a terrific job, and I think it's an unexplored area of DC that I think he seems to have, kind of his reign of. And I think it's important. He's doing a great job with this book. I don't know. To me, it's one of the better titles out of the launch. This is not a middle stack book. This is a top stack book for me.
Yes.
When this comes out, this is easily in my first 5 books that I read. Its placement tends to shuffle depending on what other books are in there, but it's easily in the top of the stack. I'm like, ooh, Demon Knights is out, and I grab that one right away because I'm into reading it, and it is one of those books that I definitely want to note is in a different place than some of the other titles.
Yeah, and I cheered, by the way, with with Vandal's turn. I literally, as I was reading it, I cheered out loud because I was like, it came such at a perfect moment and it fit him, it fit the character, what I know about him. That was just something that normally you shouldn't cheer for the bad guys, but I was for that just because I was like, that's perfect timing for me. That's right then, the exact moment. If I was him, I would have chosen that time to turn. Great timing, great usage of it.
And I'll be watching you from now on. Because of such a comment. On that note, let's talk Stormwatch.
This, for me, is a near-perfect example of what a non-traditional superhero team can do and the dynamics they're going to face. Stormwatch, the whole Wildstorm universe, I picked it up and I was reading it for a while, but I had to actually put it aside because of, and it was never because of content. It was never because of what I was getting. I was getting great stories, but I just had too many titles and I needed to put some aside. So when this came out and this was part of the DC universe, I was pretty excited about that because I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick this up, see where this fits, and see how this goes. And I am really loving what I'm getting. I'm comfortable with who these people are, and even if there are some mysteries behind some of the characters, wondering where they're going to go, it's just this wonderful story, wonderful fit. And I love seeing how they're handling with their problems in a little bit different fashion. They got to make compromises sometimes, and they can't get the clean win that you would expect from, the superhero team. Well, sometimes there's a little bit of touch of gray in life, and sometimes you got get a little bit dirty. And originally, I was actually going to do the Grateful Dead's touch of gray with this, because the superhero team does have a little bit of a touch of gray. There is a little bit of dirt to them, but I decided that was one of the songs I threw out because that was really bad. I did a really bad version. Even I do know that I can't sing, okay, and sometimes even I say, "No, I can't do that one."
Gotta pull back. That's funny. Yeah, Stormwatch is one of those titles. It's the team that has watched over Earth for many, many years, and it's come apart due to betrayal. Can they reform in time to save the world once again? Jack Hawksmoor, Apollo, Midnighter, Jenny Quantum, the Engineer, the Martian Manhunter, Adam 1, formerly member of the team, Adam 1.
You know what? He may not be gone yet. He may come back.
Yeah, who knows? The Projectionist, and then our Turncoat. The Engineer gains this leadership that she wanted, and I love that how the voting for her wasn't even clean. Talk about dirty. Martian Manhunter's terrific here, and I could see why this would be the team he would join instead of the Justice League, because of the way that this universe is just a little different. I forget how much to add, like when we were talking about Green Lantern Corps, the consistency of the use of this character where he pushes them to save the Earth the way that they didn't save Krypton and Mars. I thought there was something special about the way that was handled. I'm sad that Paul Cornell, like issue 6, this most recent issue, is Paul Cornell's last on this title. I think he's done a terrific job on this book. It's been great. And I'm excited to see what Peter Milligan's going to do. I know issue 7's a fill-in by Paul Jenkins, and then Peter Milligan's taking over, I think, with issue 8. I might be wrong on that. But he is taking over, and I'm curious to see what Peter Milligan's going to do, because I think he's going to be great on it. But Paul Cornell has done, I think, just a terrific job on this book, developing it. Apollo and Midnighter's relationship developing here is the highlight for me. There's a real sense of how both help each other survive and find their role on this team, and I like that I can understand why both would quickly develop a respect for each other, because the sequences have played out that way. Where when Apollo was feeling a bit lost, Midnighter jumped in and was really talking to him about the things that really were on his mind and were hitting him at a place, where you could call home. And then when Midnighter's out there dying, Apollo swoops in to save the day. Midnighter was like really ready to defiantly say, "I am not going out this way. They're not going to have the pleasure." I mean, I loved that sequence. He thought that was it. And at that last minute, Apollo saves him. If you develop a relationship between two characters, this is exactly how to do it. It's believable that these two moving forward in these sequences, these are pivotal sequences for the two where you see they have made themselves better than they were solo. And that's really, really important. The Demonites making an appearance here as being the slave ship, that was... It added a dark twist to the whole thing. It's the only way to say it. The team has questionable ethics, and they vary from member to member. I think that makes for an interesting title, too. They don't consider themselves superhero. They seem to consider themselves above it. We're not them.
Yeah.
And I know there's some about that whole thing, yet in some ways, they're more dysfunctional than most of the hero teams. There's something about them that I'm finding this book. It's everything that I was saying about Justice League Dark. It's unique. It's different. And yet, very quickly, I'm with you. I don't know a lot of these characters very well. I followed a lot of the Wildstorm stuff that you're mentioning too, and I quite enjoyed it. And I'm glad that it's been folded into the DC universe like this, because it works here in the way that they've set it up. Martian Manhunter on the team, at first I was like, huh? I totally get it now that you see it in practice. It's really being handled very, very well. I find him to be really interesting.
And he so fits this book, and it's really cool, because when they announced he was going to be on the team, I was thinking, okay, they're just throwing that to try to have a bigger connection to the DCU, and that's not the case. He actually belongs on this team. This is a great team for him, for his personality and just how they're using him. I really dig that.
You filthy criminals.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Jesse. I just wanted to call and tell you how much I love the show. I think I stumbled upon it about 6 or 7 episodes ago when I was looking for a comics podcast. I've been a comic book fan my whole life. I watched the Batman animated series growing up and the Justice League. But I was never able to read the comics because I'm totally blind. I tried to con my family into reading them, but they just didn't get it. It's not that they were mean or locked me in a basement or something. They just wasn't something they were into. But so I was looking around to find a podcast that I could follow along with the comics with, and I found Raging Bullets. I just want to say this is a great show. It gives me a little glimpse of what's going on in the comic books that I can't read. I'm trying to con my girlfriend into reading them, but it's not working very well, although I'm thinking about maybe blackmailing her with a marriage proposal if she'll read the New 52 to me. But I just wanted to call in and say I love the show. Congratulations on your 300th episode, and I can't wait to hear Knightfall. All right, have a great day, guys. See ya.
Thank you for the kind words. And actually, one of the things I wanted to shout out before Jim and I even get to commenting, there's 2 sites that I don't know if you've checked out yet, but there's a site called Graphic Audio. It's graphicaudio.net, GRAPHICAUDIO.net. That's graphicaudio.net. They've taken DC's books that have been adapted into novels. Things like Final Crisis, Infinite Crisis, and stuff like that. If you haven't had a chance to check them out, they have a whole selection of Batman stories and things that have been adapted to audio. So you can actually hear full cast productions. But then there's also a site called Pendant Audio, which is pendantaudio.com. And they do original podcasts where they've created their own stories featuring Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, Batman, Superman. They're ongoing serialized stories that they've created on their own, which are cast, which are original stories. They aren't the comic book stories, but they're their own. And if you haven't had a chance to check them out, I think they're great ways to experience comic book characters from the audio medium. And they're full, rich stories that you can enjoy. So I don't know if you've already checked out those sites, but I just wanted to shout those out to you because it's really cool. And I want to thank you for the kind words. I always wondered if we would be accessible that way. And I'm glad that we are, because that's one of the things that I was hoping our discussions would be great for people to kind of jump in and join the comic book world with us. So that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Sean and Jim, Eli in New York. I'm actually on 52nd Street because I just walked out of the JLA Doom advanced screening they had at the Paley Center, formerly the Museum of Broadcasting here in New York, and it was fantastic. It had everybody. It had Tim Daly as Superman, Kevin Conroy as Batman, Michael Rosenbaum as Flash, as a Barry Allen Flash, not a Wally West Flash, and the woman who played Wonder Woman, I can't remember her name. Phil Morris played Vandal Savage. It was really good. It was fantastic. It was based on the JLA Tower of Babel trade. When you guys watch it and review it, you'll go over the story. But it's based on the Tower of Babel, and it was outstanding. Afterwards, after the screening, there was a talk back with Andrea Romano, Phil Morris, and Kevin Conroy, and they were very gracious. The widow of Dwayne McDuffie was there. He wrote this script. He was the last script that he wrote, and the audience gave him and his widow a very nice ovation. It was very touching. She didn't speak or anything, but she did stand up, and people gave her a very nice welcome, and it was really great. The talk back was real good. They were very gracious to the audience. They gave away a copy of the Blu-ray pack, which I did not get. Next time. And it was great. They each gave some funny stories about Dwayne. They gave their favorite moments in the various series that they did. It was a really nice evening, and I can't recommend Doom enough. It's just the DC puts out these animated films, and they've all been great. I haven't seen one that I didn't like. they've all been great, and this one is really good, and they're all together. And then Kevin Conroy was so wonderful just to watch him talk, because all you could hear is Batman. And at the very end, as people were getting out to leave, Conroy gets up and goes, "Hold on, wait a minute." And then people got quiet, and he goes, "I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman." And the place went nuts. It was a wonderful evening. I won tickets online somehow, and I was able to go. So I got one over on you for about 2 weeks until you're able to see it. Please see it, and I can't wait for your review. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
We are so doing that on the show. You know what really bothered me? I didn't really get a feel for how Eli felt about it.
Yeah, no, he was a little bit vague. Did you enjoy it, or did you think it was only so-so?
It was funny. I like those talkbacks. We've had an opportunity at conventions to get to be a part of those at times. My favorite one was that Wonder Woman screening we went to, where they did a talk afterwards with the voice cast and some things like that. And I really enjoyed that, and the production team. These projects that they've been doing for DC, and it's been a while since we've had, at least it feels like it's been a while. I think it's because there hasn't been, the last one came out, I think, after the big superhero movie push. So it felt like we were getting a lot of visual content from superheroes. We haven't had anything in a while, so I'm itching for one. So I'm glad this is coming out. Did you ever read Tower of Babel?
I don't think I have. I know the story and I know what happens, but I don't think I've actually read it. I think it's more from just conversations and discussions and whatnot.
I'm going to be anxious to see what McDuffie did with it, because from what I've already seen from the previews, he did his own take on it. There's a great Mark Waid story when Mark Waid was writing Justice League, and it's definitely a story I highly recommend for anybody if you've never read it before. I'm excited to see this, though, to see what kind of twists and turns, because McDuffie's been doing has done a great job. Has been,
God, yeah.
Those scripts have been great. So, I mean, to have a chance to get one more from him is a real treat, and I'm glad that for his legacy. I'm hoping there's something special on the DVD about him and his career. I mean, that'd be kind of nice as a little addition, or some form of reminiscence of him or something on there. I can't imagine them not doing that. How do you not?
Yeah, there's going to be something. I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm looking forward to that for a lot of purposes. But that story, I mean, what a great legacy he's had with these releases. And the great part about that is I think these are things that are going to stick around for a long, long time. I think with each new one, people have a chance to maybe experience them for the first time and then go back. Because I'm guessing for a lot of people listening right now, I know from the commentary we've had, there are a lot of listeners right now who are coming back to DC Comics who haven't read in a while. So they might not have gotten some of these releases, and all of them are good. So this will be a great one to maybe start off with, and if you like it, to jump back and get some of the others. So kind of cool stuff.
Hey, this is Eli again from New York. Did I mention that Doom was great? I don't know if I mentioned it. All right. See ya.
See, I was a little unclear on that. I don't know how he felt. Are you still confused?
Well, I think I'm getting a little bit better understanding behind what he was thinking about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little
Thanks
off.
for the follow-up, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad he sent that home, because I wasn't really quite sure. I knew.
Outstanding.
I knew.
Outstanding.
That's why I said that before I'd heard that one, so I knew that he called back in again. That was funny. That was funny, though, that he called back in. Yeah, actually, thank you for both of our callers, Jesse and Eli. This time, we really enjoyed your phone calls. And our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434, or Dr. Norge on Skype. And they're always in our show notes and available on our website, too. But we love having you a part of our show, so please feel free to call in anytime with any of your comments about comics or anything relating to them. We love having you a part of the show.
Hole in a donut.
Our next title, buddy, Animal Man.
The thriller for me regarding Animal Man, and yes, I was going to sing Michael Jackson's Thriller, but I've decided to be merciful and spare all of you the torment that is me trying to do Michael Jackson. But the thriller for me is that Animal Man is kind of a horror story, but it's not a true monster book, so I kind of think of it as horror pop. Hence why I was going with the King of Pop and his Thriller song. But it has some freaky elements, but the main goal of it is not to scare you. The main goal is this is a superhero story. This is a superhero story that deals with some supernatural stuff, deals with some freaky stuff, but it's got this element of realism to it. As I'm watching these kids deal with this, I'm dealing with some stuff that are way beyond what any normal person would have a rational grasp on. They're handling it, and they're handling it. I could see myself dealing with this, in a similar manner. We got this cute little girl who's able to move around dead little puppies and dead little animals, and she's got a talking cat, and you got the rot coming after them, and just all this stuff that is just going beyond what you would expect and think of as a good father-daughter moment. These two are dealing with, and I love just how it's playing out. I love the look of this book, and that kind of adds the whole vibe and the whole feel for me. Yeah. So this is a book that surprised me at how much I am enjoying it, and really how much I'm looking forward to where this is going to go.
From issue 1, Animal Man was this quirky launch title that quickly won its way into my heart as one of my favorites. You were talking about how it's a superhero title at its core. I'm also going to add it's a family title at its core, because it's really the development of this family and the realism of how a family would react to all this is something that I'm finding engaging. Buddy Baker and his family went out for me the same way Sweet Tooth did by Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire, I'm sorry. I keep calling him Lemire. I don't know why I keep old. Now that I know it's Lemire, I'm sticking with that. He has a way of creating these endearing characters that pull at your heartstrings. Buddy's little girl has this creepy connection to the red place and the rot that surpasses her father's, yet she's also a child, and that inexperience of life plays out with a father trying to protect his daughter. I love how this book shows the stresses on Buddy's wife, she's a human who's trying to accept the hardships of his world, but becomes also scared at the risks to her children, and, dealing with, then again, his absences due to that. She thought this life was done. The son who feels lost in the shuffle without powers of his own and an identity that you don't want to lose as an oldest son, It feels like a natural family facing this world and the issues that come with it. I just love the look that you mentioned earlier and the feel of this book. It's really on my short list of overall titles, not even of the new titles, of overall titles currently being published across comics. This, to me, is a very special, endearing title that I see this one, if it continues with the same consistency, it being one of those runs that I constantly refer back to as being one of those that people ask me what this is up there with things like Secret Six, Starman, certain shortlist titles that I'm like, Mark Waid's Flash run. This has a potential to get there. If it stays with the consistency it's got now, because it's different. It's like a well-rounded book that every time I read an issue of it, I smile, and I just can't help but enjoy the book. It's special. This is a special book. And it's something it's a little different from all of the other titles that are currently being published right now. And I'm just glad to see something like this coming about, because I do think this is going to be something, it's a title I'm going to remember in a different way. Next book, Jim?
Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. I got it right this time.
I liked it that before you were doing like kind of an amalgam title. It's him and Nick Fury running around. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, a lot of people probably were turned off this book thinking it's a monster book. But for me, Frank is as much a hero as any DC Universe hero out there. He just has his own little differences and his own little quirks. This is something that Frank is a book that I was actually looking forward to because of Seven Soldiers of Victory, because of that exposure to Frankenstein. And yes, in the traditional literature, he was the monster. Frankenstein's the doctor, and it's not technically, he wasn't called Frankenstein. I understand that. And to any of the traditionalists who are out there, I get you, I hear you. But in the DC universe, he is Frank, and they're calling him Frankenstein, which I kind of like. And I like the fact that he is his own their own version of it, but there still is a connection, still is a comment towards Dr. Frankenstein, and there has been even references to some of the genius that he did behind it. And I'd like to see them explore more of Frank's background, see where he is, what kind of semblances. Is he a man? A semblance of his parts, or is he more than that? And it's definitely opening some possibilities of some interesting stories, but you get some beautiful complications because you got this organization like Shade. And we've already seen crossovers with the OMAC book and everything going on there. So there's a lot that can happen here. There's a lot of, quirkiness, but there's also some cool government ops, black ops missions, double crossings, and just the unknown whatnot that you get with dealing with a government agency that's not always on the up and up, not always above board, and not always honest with its own agents. So there's a lot of cool stuff that can come from this.
Don't mess with Frank, baby. The Creature Commandos, Ray Palmer, experiments gone wrong, and guilt associated with that. This is a crazy, whacked-out scientific world that's just so awesome to follow. Again, Frank has a moral code, and I'm with you. He's a hero in this story. He isn't just some lackey, though. He works with Shade because it serves his need to bring justice, but I also feel he'd have no hesitation to turn on them if Father Time went too far, because we've already seen interactions with the two to indicate that Frank's not afraid to speak his mind. And let Father Time know that, hey, I'm Frank, you're not. Nina and each of the commandos have personalities that I can't help but enjoy. Jeff Lemire's leaving this book, but his co-writer and some of his other work is coming aboard. So I have faith that this title moving forward is going to be in good hands, and it's going to have the same theme and feel to it. This has been another one of those books that I've really enjoyed from the relaunch. I'm going to tell you, it's funny. I really enjoyed the character in Seven Soldiers, but recently the Flashpoint work with the character really got me excited for this character in an ongoing. So I'm glad to see that it just came with that same feel that I was really enjoying. I really enjoyed him in Flashpoint, so it's great to see him here as well. Vampire.
Man, I tell you, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, so y'all know how much I am digging this series. This is a great vampire story. This is a great vampire story inside the DC universe. I loved seeing just that crossover and that connection with Batman. It fits so naturally for his first dealings with us being the Bat. I'm personally looking forward to other crossovers. We got, Justice League Dark. I'd love to see a Superman Vampire crossover, because I think that would be a really cool contrast, because you have the superhero, the brightest of the brightest superheroes dealing with this vampire. How would Clark deal with him? How would he see him? And there's a lot of, there's a lot of possibilities that they can go with it. But at its core, at its base of it, it's a cool vampire story. It's a cool story within itself. It doesn't need crossovers. It doesn't need ties in with the other heroes to be successful, to be popular, to be a good story. And that, for me, is just something I am really digging about this. Solid foundation, really loving it, looking forward to the future.
Issue 5 showed us how to do a vampire-Batman crossover right. Batman's had a rich history of having vampire stories associated with him, and this book has had a style throughout the first 4 issues. I'm not downplaying them, and you and I are right. We talked about this book recently. This shines to me, though, when you bring a character like Batman in it, but you don't lose the interesting world that you've crafted. You live as an immortal for so long. You try to keep a code. What happens when the one you love is the queen and is on the other side? What happens when you are hunted by other vampires for that code? Resolving this is not going to be easy for Bennett and his crew, and it's not going to be a clean ending. And I'm excited to keep following this story. Like I said, we did this. I don't have a whole lot more to say because we did this book so recently, other than I'm really enjoying this. What's great about it is I'm enjoying what Scott Snyder's doing in American Vampire, and this is so different than that, which is a compliment to both titles, that they both have a unique and very valid feel to them. And I think, it's a great time, I think, to be a vampire fan and be reading DC books, because these are cool titles. Next book, Jim.
OMAC. You know what? I'm still working out OMAC, and it's one of those processes that, for me, I'm chugging along, I'm reading the stories, I'm enjoying the stories, but I still don't have a solid grasp on him. But it's never been a point where I'm saying anything's bad about it. I think, for me, this title, has this really cool place in that there's a strong connection to what the stories of the past. There's a strong connection to what was a traditional OMAC story. Now, I say that having never read a traditional OMAC story, but I still get that feeling from this. I still get that vibe from it, just when I'm reading it, when I'm just going through the images, the story being told, and it's kind of a neat experience for me because I'm having this connection to something I've never read, but it seems like it just a natural progression and seems like just a natural flow for me. So this is a roller coaster kind of emotion, trying to figure out where I'm going with this, what's going to happen. And I definitely want more OMAC. I want to see what's going to happen. I'm digging, the Max Lord being involved with it just because he is such a great villain, and I want to see where that plays out and how that, and of course Brother Eye, the whole connection there and the creation of Brother Eye and where did he come from. There's a lot of mysteries that I want to know, but I don't want it rushed. I'm enjoying this pacing. I'm enjoying this expression. I'm enjoying how it's being laid out to me.
It's canceled, right?
Yes, I know.
OMAC, one marvelously amazing comic. I know you and I are in different places on this book. And I know you weren't knocking it, but for me, I don't know what it is. Right from issue 1, this was a title that I was perking up at. As the story went on, I started to get more and more used to it. I've heard some criticisms of the art in this book, and I just feel they couldn't be more wrong. It feels like a classic Kirby, but it also has a modern flair to it. I love the tweaks that they've done to the art and the technology. The title story is great. Kevin would not want Brother Eye running his life, but he's come to the realization that for his own safety, he needs to embrace at least some of that. You get caught in a sewer with enough creepy villains chasing you, and you'll want to activate too. The supporting cast is rich and works for me. I like that his disappearances do affect his relationships. How long can you be unreliable before that happens? We've got all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes with this evil factory that's going on back there. And I don't know, I'm really digging the story. I'm sad that it's being canceled because I think it's different. It's another one of those titles that, and you touched on this a lot in your commentary. It's something that's it's a little unique. It's an unusual character, and I eat that stuff up. Give me something a little fresh that I haven't seen. I actually liked it so much that I've got the OMAC Kirby Omnibus. There actually is a hardcover collecting the Kirby work on this, and I want to read more of this because I agree with you. There's a classic feel to this, but there's a modern, I'm a techie and I love the modern technical flair to this book. It has that kind of cool technical feel which I think you need if you got Brother Eye running around and making people activate. It feels very today. And while having the classic OMAC concept, I should say, being a part of it. Next book?
Resurrection Man. I close my eyes only for a moment, and a moment's gone. All my dreams pass before my eyes, a curiosity. Dust in the wind. All they are is dust in the wind.
I close my ears, hoping Jim's voice will go away. Sorry.
Outstanding. Wait, you know what? You get a for that one.
Go. Please continue. I'm sorry I derailed you a bit there.
Well, for me, that song, it just always plays out from the old school when the blues funeral. And that's just why I had to go with that, because we're dealing with the Resurrection Man who keeps coming back. And when they announced this book, I was thinking, okay, it'll be probably neat for an issue or two, curious to see when his powers change. But I always felt I would get bored with it. After a while, okay, how many powers can you go through? Well, they're changing things up for me. They're taking it to a direction I didn't figure they would go. And these swerves, these little hooks, they're pulling me in and whatnot. And I'm digging this. This is a character that I know nothing about. So education's been enjoyable. But I love seeing something go, a story go in a direction that I never thought they would go with. And I don't know why it didn't dawn on me, but there would be ramifications to a guy who dies and comes back when you're dealing with heaven and hell. And there would be consequences behind his actions. There would be people holding him accountable and wanting to, if you will, keep the slate clean and keep the balance going on in the universe. And I never thought that this story would even approach that or go that route, and I'm glad it's doing that, and it's got me into it.
For 6 years, I wish Jim was the Resurrection Man. Just think, I could have a different co-host every week. And if I didn't like the one I had, well, mid-episode. I'm kidding. With the unknown of resurrecting to new powers, plus a new sense of purpose, this book has the ability to remain unique for a long run. I love Mitch, but also the mystery of his past. Transhuman's early aging, the body doubles, Surreal, and his resurrections being an abomination of sorts to those above and below from the whole religious angle. It's just a cool book, but I like this, right away what grabbed me was not only when he resurrected did he have new powers, but there was that hint that those powers were giving him a new sense of purpose, dragging him into a new direction that he couldn't explain. And I thought those were things that were key. And that's what'll also make it fresh. It's not just the new powers. It's what is that new purpose? What does that mean for him? And I liked that right from the get-go, that hook. So even when this, there's a resolution of the mystery of his past and everything, there's that to go off of, which really could make this, and for as far as an ongoing, keep that hook fresh. And you don't have to change his powers every issue. You just have to change them when it feels right for the story. So that's kind of the cool thing as well. It's a cool book, and I've really liked it. Deathstroke.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year. Stole many a man's soul and faith. I find myself thinking of this title as being sympathy for the Deathstroke. Yes, he is an evil killer, but if you get to know him, you'll see that he doesn't have some completely evil characteristics. He does have a code of honor. He does have some characteristics that I will not say is good. I will say is not completely evil. And I'm loving that exploration of this awesome, awesome villain. And he's been one of those villains that I enjoyed. When they announced this was coming out, I was very excited. And I'm also finding myself having a couple Secret Six moments. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's when I read a book, I cheer at something that I shouldn't cheer for, but you have to cheer because it is just so cool. And it's just so awesome. You're like, yes, I shouldn't be enjoying the fact that he just slaughtered these children, but you know what? I gotta laugh and cheer for it because it fit him so perfectly.
Deathstroke has grown into a title that really captures much of the history of Slade that I love with the introduction of Grant. I absolutely loved issue 6. I think Deathstroke's history is essential in gathering an understanding of his code, what makes this anti-hero cool. The stories of Achilles being used to help his son move forward is something I just adore. He's trying to make his son in his image, which is always a danger because he never truly let Grant grow into his own. And it just felt like a tragedy waiting to happen. It's natural for a father to want his son to equal or surpass him, but it's clear Grant's path should not have been the same, and that's going to screw with his head. I love the writing of Kyle Higgins right now. Between this and Nightwing, he's really impressing me. I love the whole legacy storyline, and that Slade built his son to be his worst enemy. Something about that, just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Next book, Jim?
Grifter. I tell you, this is another Wildstorm title that I am glad to see in the DCU. And it's something that I've steadily enjoyed the book's development. It's kind of neat because we have this overarching Damonite story arc that's spread over multiple titles, but we do have this solid foundation of who the Grifter is, where he's going, and it's not just about this overall connection. It's not just about this one story. There are multiple facets to it. There are different breakdowns of who he is, but it is kind of cool to see him that he's not alone. He is a part of the universe. He is a part of this story, and I want to see it play out. I want to see where it goes. This is something that Again, another title I was really glad for with the New 52, with the reboot. This is somebody that they can bring in, introduce to people, and get him out there because he is a neat, fun character.
I thought you were going to call them Dainty Knights. For years and years.
I almost said Dinny Moore.
Did you? Oh, great. Yeah. The DC Universe is rising up against beef stew.
It almost slipped out.
I would not take this man's girlfriend in a million years. I love that after 6 issues that I really look forward to this title. This has an action movie feel to it. And I point that out because Cole just feels like an action hero. You have these great moments with his girlfriend being captured by the Daemonites where he has to step in and save her. Yet he also trusts her with the knife and being able to handle herself. Gretchen isn't just a damsel in distress. There is some substance to their relationship that we got to see when Cole was down and out, and we got to see her reaction to him. Sophia as his partner adds the buddy cop aspect that works so well for great action films. I love that she feels like a true partner. I wonder if their relationship's going to stay platonic. Now here's my question. The voices that he's been hearing, are they Gretchen's? I don't mean just at the end of that most recent issue, but all along during that issue? Did the portal take her through time? Because in the beginning it said, "Help me," earlier in the issue. And I can't help but wonder, was that her? Not in the ship, but wherever she's been taken through the portal. I don't know. I mean, and it's just one of the speculations that I'm throwing out there. I'm into this book. I mean, it's interesting, this title. This Nathan Edmondson's done a real good job with this title so far, and I'm digging Grifter. It's one of those. This is one of the ones where there's a creative change coming that I'm like worried about.
Yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to say I'm worried about it because I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I'm so digging where this is going, and especially the recent issues that I want to see. I am nervous. I am nervous about this because I've enjoyed this story so much, and part of it is the coolness of the character, but part of it is the story being told and where it's going and the groundwork that's laid for the future. So this is one I'm going to have to, keep a close eye on, see what happens. And to answer what you were thinking, I agree with you. I think it was her going through time, and the entire time, it's always been her, the voices he's been hearing. That's how I read it.
Yeah, I like this book, though. I've been really digging it, it was a character, it was one of those ones in the relaunch, I was like, woo, Grifter. I was excited for it because I haven't read much Grifter, but I wasn't, through the roof because, I don't have a long history with him or anything. I mean, I've read him in Wildcats and enjoyed him, and in Team 7 and stuff like that. So, I mean, I have read the character and dug him before. I wasn't so sure about him in a solo because, that was something new for me, and it's working. I like what they're doing. And it's adding to this whole Daemonites thing that seems to be kind of sweeping the DC Universe. Next title, Jim.
Voodoo. You know what? I've got Santana's Black Magic Woman just running through my head constantly. Now, I know she's not magic, but it's still that cool vibe, that cool, smooth vibe that you get from the song. I kind of see it with her. I see it, just in her presence. And I'm enjoying her connection with the Daemonites, but it's not just that story. It's a nice add-on. It's a nice part of the story, but who she is, the supporting cast in the comic is. There's all these different pieces coming together, mysteries, swerves, and whatnot. Oh my, I am really digging Voodoo. This was a title that came out of left field for me. No idea who she was or anything. I'm glad it's around. I'm really happy and really enjoying it.
Will an identity crisis be resolved in a way that makes Voodoo a hero or a villain? She was abducted at 4. Does she, well, at least we think it was her. Does she know that? Is she the clone, or is that other Voodoo they showed us the clone? Which side of yourself do you embrace? She kills with ease, yet has shown compassion. I loved her meeting with Kyle Rayner. That made her begin to question what she thinks, yet the attacks on her seem to reaffirm her thoughts. This is one, Ron Mars's last issue was number 5. Josh Williamson is writing the Uncharted mini right now, which is really good. And the art's staying the same. He's the one that's stepping in. I'm disappointed, though, and it's not a knock on Williamson, because I just like what Mars has been doing so far, and I've been a fan of his work on Witchblade, and obviously his Green Lantern work as well. So I was hoping to see him, stay with this title. So I don't know what happened there. But this Williamson's doing a good job on Uncharted, so I'm hoping that he's able to carry on what I'm liking about Voodoo. Because everything I just said is what I'm digging. I want to know what's going on with this girl.
Yeah.
and where she's going. So far it's a good book. Suicide Squad.
Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor.
Ow.
Johnny Cole. I tell you, this title has got an awesome body count going on it, both on the victim side and the team members. And that's something I really am glad to see, that they're not afraid to kill people off on, the quote-unquote main cast members. You never know who's going to go. You never know how they're going to go. And it's that mystery, that swerve behind it, that is making this an enjoyable title. With the departure of Secret Six, I wanted something to fill the void. Now, this book doesn't fill that same void. This is a different creative team, different characters, so it will never be another Six. But this is still a very good villain team that has some twists to it. They're not just your straight-up villains trying to conquer the world. They each have their own little agenda. They each have their own little personal reasons for being in there. And I like seeing how this is laid out, how this is playing out in the future. And, of course, any book that has Amanda Waller in it is kind of neat. So this is a really cool story, really enjoying it, and I'm definitely curious about the future.
I've gotten past this book not being Secret Six and started giving it a chance on its own merit. And the funny part is I've unfairly been comparing this to Secret Six all along, and it's not really fair because it's not meant to be that concept. It's not trying to be that concept. It's trying to be Suicide Squad. So now that I'm really focusing on it being Suicide Squad, I'm enjoying it for what it's supposed to be. I got a question. How is Savant back? Weren't you under the impression like he was done for?
Yeah, I thought they killed him.
Were you as shocked as I was to see him back?
Yes. And I was kind of curious, and I'm hoping they mention it and explain it and lay it out for us a little bit clearer and let us know.
Because there was the bitterness that Limelight, those two girls were mentioning, as far as, those two, Deadshot and him were arguing back and forth, and they were, hinting at the fact these two need to just kind of get past it and move on. But, obviously that was because of what we saw in the past. I thought he was a done issue. Imagine my surprise.
Well, and that was something that kind of caught me off guard when they did that. I'm like, wait, you can't kill him off. He's an awesome character. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And boom, hey, wow, surprise, Jim.
I do like the rotating cast.
Yeah.
It makes sense that the various inmates would be given the opportunity to cut down their sentence based on usefulness for the mission. You would also keep some regulars based on their ability to be useful to Deadshot, which, you really kind of look at that. Which ones work with him well when you're setting together a squad, and that would be something Waller would do. So I get all that, and I'm with you. The Amanda Waller thing is great. I'm starting to like Deadshot in this. Instead of seeing him as Secret Six Deadshot, I'm trying to just see him as... this being a Deadshot in this universe. So now that I'm not trying to see it as that book, I'm doing much better with it. And I'm enjoying it. I like I've always liked the Suicide Squad concept. I like the idea of these people trying to work off their sentence. I like the fact that, they could have their heads blown off at any point in time. There's something about that. It's, I think Daryl Taylor mentioned it the other day when we were chatting. Dirty Dozen was a title that a movie that he brought up, which I love, that old Lee Marvin movie, Dirty Dozen. So, that kind of vibe always works for me as well. So, I don't know, something, and I think that was Daryl, and I apologize if it wasn't Daryl, but it was a conversation I was having with somebody, and they mentioned Dirty Dozen, and I totally agree with that comparison. Next title, Jim.
Blackhawks. You know what? This is a cool title. This is a fun title, and it's again one of those that's going away. So I am sad to see it go, because I don't think I personally, when we talked about it, I don't think I gave it enough of a try and enough of a feel. And I actually, after we discussed this, I went back from issue 1 through, reread the book, and I'll tell you something, I really enjoyed it. And I was like, you know what? I don't get why I wasn't as passionate about the book as you were. It does have that really cool G.I. Joe teen feel. It had that nice techie, kind of techie vibe, but the individual character development in it was really nice. There was some cool moments of getting to understand these people, getting to understand who they are and why they are operating. I'm going to miss this.
The G.I. Joe of the DCU is a solid squad action and good techie fun title. This is a sad loss for me. while it wasn't a top of the stack book for me, it did deliver every month solid fun for me. I'm enjoying the art, the characters, the story. I love how it explores the fears of tech taking over our world. I think there's something to that. I think we do live in an age where tech often overtakes human interaction. So there'd be a lot of metaphors here that I think are really interesting and contemporary to society. I also was looking forward to seeing them deal with the heroes of this world. I think teams like this would exist to be a response in a world of things beyond normal human beings, things that could be perceived as weapons. I don't know, it's just a cool team. I find each of the squad members engaging. I always liked in G.I. Joe that, you know, each of the characters had nicknames based on their ways of operating or personality characteristics and things like that. Blackhawks had that thing going on, and it fit. You know, it seemed like something that was missing in DC storytelling, which is why I found it fun. And it goes back to the history of the Blackhawks. You know, what that team was like, because they had crazy names that were associated with, you know, who they were and things like that. I read a few issues of Blackhawks as a kid. I'm not going to pretend I'm a Blackhawks expert. I am not. But they were, like I said, from the past, flea markets. You know, I grabbed a few issues of it. I remember in the 70s reading a few issues of Blackhawks. You know, it had been like 5 or 6. They were broken runs of the title, but I liked, you know, what I read a great deal. That was one of the great things about flea markets. You got to read so many cool things. Yeah, they were beaten up, but I mean, you know, it was comics that you bought in a box for like $2, and it was loaded. And wait, Jim, if I spent $2, that's on the high end. I mean, you'd walk out with I'm talking about a decent sized box of comics that were beat up, but you could read full issue runs. They just had maybe corners torn off or something like that. I don't know. Stuff that'd make you cringe if you wanted a bag and boredom. But for a reader like me, it was like, wow, this is a chance to read all of these books that I can't in a million. You know, as a kid, you don't have any budget. So that was like a candy store, a flea market. To this day, you know, if you haven't had a chance to go to a flea market, it's great for people on a real tight budget to read some classic material. Because there's a lot of people selling boxes and boxes of stuff at flea markets. But that's why, you know, that Wild Pig Super Show sale that's coming up. That I mean, they've got, 60,000, I think they said, 50-cent bin titles in alphabetical order, mainly in alphabetical order. How do you, I mean, that's amazing that you can go there and grab that kind of quality material at those prices. And that stuff, that's not going to be beat up stuff. You know, that's going to be a 50-cent bin of probably decent condition material. Men of War, Jim.
I am one with the warrior inside. My dominance can't be denied. Your entire world will turn into a battlefield tonight. As I look upon you through the warrior's eyes, now I can see the fear that will ensure my victory this time. Okay, that's Disturbed, by the way. I don't want to take credit for those cool lines, and it's Disturbed's Warrior. I wasn't going to sing it because of just the hard, heavy metal aspect to it, and it would really be bad, but I like that feeling. I love that energy behind the song. I love the story behind it, and it's something that I get that same feel from the Sergeant Rock. I get that, and I still call Men of War Sergeant Rock. I don't call it Men of War title because it just, I don't know, it's that connection. You know, I love seeing just his modern day dealings with the meta, just that kind of that military aspect of it, but it was DC Universe. There was meta, there was some other stuff, but it did have a realistic story to it, especially those extra stories at the end with that Navy SEAL story. That was really cool, you know, just exploration of what normal everyday soldiers have to deal with, and I love seeing that. It's, you know, it was something that, you know, it was a really cool, you know, story, and I'm glad I got to experience it. I'm curious what's going to happen with the changeover, and you know, I don't want to lose that realism. I want to keep that same warrior concept. I want to keep that same Men of War. I want to keep that same feel to it.
I had no idea. Actually, I should say my line is modern day military set in a metahuman world. I had no idea what this book was going to be when it was announced. I was wondering if it would be World War II stories, a la how Jonah Hex is set in the past, too. You know, if they were going that route with it. I'm glad it's set in present day and really enjoyed the exploration of Rock's son, but also of real-world concerns from the perspective of the soldier and the people involved. I'm not a military guy, but I found this to be a book that added something to my reading list and gave me an exploration of something new to me that I am interested in. I am interested in the military world. It's cool to see, these type of stories being told, to somebody who doesn't have that kind of background. So I'm glad it's being replaced with a similar type of anthology. I hope that some of the characters do appear in the new title and some of the backups, eventually. I'm guessing that the War with Time Forgot, appearing in the next title is kind of a hook for more of the fantasy crowd, which works for me too. I'm into that. But I'm hoping that the backups continue to have the same real world focus that this one did, because I really liked, as you mentioned, the Navy SEAL backup was great. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. That's a great opportunity to explore. It does look like we're going to be getting a nice rotation of backup stories in the new title, so I'm into all that. So I'm hoping that continues. I'm glad they're replacing this with a similar themed title, because I've been digging this book for its place. It's something new. It's something different for me. And, the Jonah Hex comparison is a pretty good one as far as, it fits in that kind of category, just something different. That being said, our
All-Star
next
Western, grade A1, butt-kicking, hardcore, master of disaster. Jonah Hex is an awesome, awesome Western that can be enjoyed by all fans of action, not just Westerns. I know it's a little run-on, but hey, that was my one line for it. Jonah Hex,
I did that on some of mine too.
Jonah Hex has just been that great story for me, and again, as I said, you don't have to be, I don't think you have to be a Western fan to enjoy this book. Yeah, it takes place back then, and there are some variations that make it uniquely a Western story. But first and foremost, at its core, this is an action, adventure, hardcore, butt-kicking story. And seeing him in Gotham City in this opening story arcs have been a really cool, wow, that's neat that they're tying it into the DCU through the Gotham connection. I don't need to see him stay in Gotham. Once he goes out to the West, it'll be cool because Jonah Hex is cool. So this is, one of those great stories that I was really glad we got.
Oh my God. I just saw that an upcoming issue of All-Star Western will feature Nighthawk and Cinnamon. Okay, my line was supposed to be about the whole book. But seriously, if you've never... Nighthawk and Cinnamon, it's Hawkman and Hawkgirl. I mean, yay, by Gray and Palmiotti. I mean, how cool is that? Seriously, if you have never tried any Jonah Hex material from Gray and Palmiotti, you are missing a real treat that is some of the best in comics. This book is a genuine sleeper hit. It's been a genuine sleeper hit when it was Jonah Hex. I will always pick this material up in some format as long as it's published, no matter my budget. The stories are so diverse, from romance, action, tales of revenge, to the supernatural. There are so many high-five moments in this book. I would say it's a spaghetti Western comic done right, but I think that undersells its potential audience base. Even if Westerns aren't your thing, there is a strong anti-hero story going on here. Morality and consequences of action are explored here on a deep level. The resolutions aren't always about winning. Sometimes it's just about survival, which I find interesting and exciting. This is one of DC's very best titles, and I'm trying to note some of these that are on my shorter stack of very best titles. If I had to cut down right now, All-Star Western would find a home in my stack for sure. I often forget to mention it, but it's a point I need to make here, because when I think of this book and I think about Jonah Hex, it's one of those where I'm like, oh my gosh, any lists that I start making, if I start rattling off Batman books and things like that, I sometimes forget to plug this book in. And it's one of those, if I was chopping down and I was going to make up, going to the comic shop, and I saw this on the shelf and about 40 other books, Jonah Hex I'd grab first. And I mean, All-Star Western is Jonah Hex, and that's why, I mean, it's one of those titles that for me, I know for the longest time on the show, I was pleading with you to start reading Jonah Hex, and I think you finally understand why. It just is one of those special books that it's unique, it's well written, it's just every issue delivers on a level that it's really some of the best in comics. I firmly believe that.
It's more than a Western story. Mm-hmm. There is something more to this title than just meets the eye. It's something that's... I really, really dig it. And it's, I'm glad that you kept pestering me. And also, my brother Bill also said, dude, come on, you got to read Jonah Hex. It's awesome. So I'm glad for both of you. So thank you. Because, this is something I'm glad I haven't, I've experienced and I will continue to enjoy.
I love Arkham being brought into it. I didn't realize that he was he seems to be an ongoing sidekick. It just
Well,
seems
for now,
yeah, they seem to be,
it's going to eventually he's going to part ways. But for now, and he's a good sidekick. It's a good
as of issue 7, he's still with them.
Yeah.
Somehow these two are just winding up together again because now they're going to New Orleans together. I'm just looking at the blurb for issue 7, and he and Amadeus Arkham are going to New Orleans. So I mean, it doesn't seem like two people that are parting ways. They're traveling. So I don't know. A new version of the hard traveling heroes. It just, you know what, that relationship just works because I like his exploration of Jonah Hex, like his viewpoint on him. Our next book, Jim.
Hawk and Dove. War! Huh! Good God, yo! What is it good for? Absolutely nothing! Say it again! Edwin Starr's War. One of the reasons I had to sing that was because I really wanted to sing Huh! In there. It's a cool song. But of the two avatars, Peace and War, right now I am really digging the Avatar of Peace so much over Hawk, which I didn't really see myself going that route on this title. You know, there is more to her than just being, she's the Avatar of Peace, there to temper war. No, there is a coolness behind her. There's some hidden moments, and there's stuff that's going to come out in the long term from her that you're like going, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. And as we're even saying swerves, there's swerves on Hawk. He's not just a powerful guy that hits things. There is more to the character. There's more to him. And this is something I'm really glad I am enjoying, and I want to know what's going to happen. I'm thinking long-term on this title. I'm thinking long-term on these characters, and
the exploration of the Avatar concept of Hawk and Dove has been an interesting one for me. I've enjoyed this as a middle-of-the-stack book. I thought Liefeld and Sterling Gates at the kickoff delivered a fun story. I wish we had a chance to see more payoff of the secrets that Dove had been keeping, because that seems to have been, like, that thread seems to have been dropped or has gone missing. And it might be due to the book's run being cut short that they just decided we can't develop that like we wanted to, which is sad for me because I was into that. That was a cool little hook that they were throwing in there, and I wanted to see where, what is the secret? We never got that delivered. Overall, I appreciate Liefeld's visual storytelling in this. He knows how to do action sequences, and this takes me back to the X-Force work that I really enjoyed from him. I enjoyed his development of Cable and that whole team. I do have a slight criticism. I enjoyed the most recent Batman appearance. I enjoyed that issue. I enjoyed the interplay with Batman and Hawk and how Hawk viewed the nods they received by Batman. I thought the internal dialogue of Hawk was a good move because I'm with you. He's like hard to a lot of times rally behind. It is Dove. This is the one that, I'm all about Dove. But I'm a fan of that, especially when dealing with an icon of the universe. And in many ways, it made me feel a little bit more endearing to Hawk. So it was a good move. Here's my criticism. When did Damian start using the bow staff? He looked like Tim Drake in Damian's suit. And I mean, I don't make many criticisms here, but this one stood out for me. I was like, he looked a little too old for how Damian is being played now. Now, I'm not trashing the whole issue. I liked the issue. For every reason that I just said, that was the one thing that stuck out for me in that issue. Didn't ruin the issue for me. I enjoyed it. It was the one part where I'm just like, what? I don't know if you felt the same way that I did. Because overall I liked the art, but the Damian bit is what stuck out for me out of it. So I'm not trashing the whole thing. It was good, but that was the part where I'm like, what now?
See, I didn't have an issue with that. I didn't even... There was no moment for me at all with that. I digged seeing him in there, digged seeing how they used him. And yeah, it was with the bow staff did have me going. I did, see him because I've never seen him use the bow staff before. But on my end, I was just like, okay, it would make sense. He can do whatever he wants. He is a master of weaponry, and this time he went with the staff. It was, it's kind of like how when there's little tweaks to the Batman costume and there's little changes in it. I kind of saw with Damian same deal where he's going to personalize the weaponry based on the situation, based on the fight, where it's going to need, and this time he went with the staff.
And like I said, it didn't ruin the issue for me. I enjoyed the issue. That's why I wanted to make sure I gave the things that I really liked about the issue, but it was the thing that kind of stood out for me, and it still does. He just looked a little too old, and the bow staff thing, I'm like, that isn't Damian to me. That's, I'm not saying that Damian can't use that. It just isn't something you usually see him carrying around. It's something that I associate with Tim Drake. And maybe it was a way, Liefeld was a fan of that weapon, and we don't really see Tim, using that too much. It's more the whole Red Robin's wings thing that he's doing now. But I don't know. It was something for me that stood out. It was a tiny little thing, didn't ruin the issue. I thought the crossover was fantastic. It was, like, again, the dialogue for Hawk, because I agree with you. Hawk is hard to like. But I think he's supposed to be. He's the avatar of war, so he's gruff. And that's where the balance of Dove, she's for as much as Hawk is hard to like, Dove is easy to love. And, I mean, that kind of balance between the two of them makes the book interesting to me. That's where the avatar concept really works. So I'm into Hawk and Dove. This is a book that the cancellation I'm sad about, because I'm digging the exploration of the characters. But that criticism is just something that kind of stood out for me, and I figured I'd throw it out there just because, it was an issue that I enjoyed, but it didn't overtake my enjoyment of it that it was there. Teen Titans?
The more things change, the more they stay the same. This is Teen Titans. This is the Titans that I enjoy. This is the Tim Drake that I love. And this is that same cool guy I became friends with so many years ago. Yeah, the team makeup is different. They're dealing with different factions, and there is probably a different, style to it. But this is still the Teen Titans. This is still Titans together. This is, something that I've always enjoyed and that I'm continuing to. And I was like, yes, I was so worried about what was going to happen to my Titans. I was worried what was going to happen to Tim. No fear, all will be well.
Scott Lobdell has crafted the teen universe of the DCU into a very interesting place. We've shared in our show our worries for the Titans. I think this is one of the things we were most worried about in the whole relaunch. I loved the most recent work of J.T. Krull and Nicholas Scott, and felt it was cut short when their team was just coming together. It was like a chance for that team to head into greater things. That being said, I love the gradual development of this new team. These are characters who have to fight together, and in this nowhere situation, we're seeing them get to know each other, their own quirks, and how to respect each other as a team. And that development gradually over time is something I'm being engaged. The nowhere situation involving Superboy and the teen metas seems very real world. Of course there would be profit and power in controlling young metas. So this whole thing, it makes sense why these guys would, have to say, okay, we're being hunted. The only way to prevent that is to band together. This one thing bringing them together. And then it leads them to become a team that will go on to face other threats other than Nowhere. I don't want it to always be Nowhere, but it's cool that it is now and how it ties into Superboy and what that relationship's going to be like. So I'm digging the team so far. It's funny, the Red Robin costume has really grown on me.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to see him in an upcoming issue of one of the Bat titles. So I'm glad that character is going to be brought back into the Bat books, where we're going to get to see him a little bit and what that relationship's like. So that I'm looking forward to. I don't know, the Superboy and this title together, I really look at them as part of the same teen universe, and it's working. I was very concerned with it, and for me it's working, and it's very enjoyable. Jim, our next book is
Static Shock. I really hate to see this one go. This was really a nice, sciencey, geeky feel to me. It fits Static, but it also fit Virgil. And I think that, for me, is the part that I really, will miss, because I was getting a cool superhero story. I was getting a cool mask story, but outside the mask, Virgil was awesome as well. And especially the way that first story arc ends with the development of the character, with the development of his family. You got the the clone and the sister clone, and they were getting along at the end there. They're looking at each other as sisters, not as one of them's a freak and one of them's not. There was just some great growth that could come out of this and develop and going forward. Static Shock was a really cool story that I was enjoying it, and I'm hoping that he finds a place somewhere else. I personally think he would fit on the Teen Titans. I think his character would blend well with them, but I don't know where that title's going. I don't know what's going to happen there. So this is one that it does hurt.
I'm sad that Mark Bernardin, and I apologize for any name butchery, he's taken over when Static's being canceled. I love that Highwaymen mini that he did. I know we were both big fans about that back in the day. We talked about it. I really was anticipating this book because most of my exposure to Static was through animation and team books. I wanted to get to know him and his family. And, I like so much of the groundwork that was laid out here. Hardware as a mentor, but also someone who protected his identity in unique ways that dealt with modern tech. I mean, it's something that I really enjoyed. I remember the first issue, I was really like, okay, this is a good book. It's an interesting exposure to a character who I only know from television animation. Plus this teenager using his skills from school to enhance his powers from, science class. That was something that just felt right to me. It felt like, wouldn't there be a motivation there? You've got superpowers. So you're learning something in science class that's going to make those powers even cooler. That would be something that I would see a teenager eating up. I felt like this was a concept that needed time. Static's a lesser-known character, and while it wasn't a great book yet, I did think it was a solid, good book that had the potential to pick up an audience. And it's one of those characters that I'm just sad to see go in a solo title, because I think the concept has some legs. And it was something where it fit that middle of the ground, kind of interesting character that I was enjoying following, that it could have been something more.
Definitely could have been more.
Yeah, so I'm sad to see this one go, because I'm digging it. Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetle does whatever a beetle can. Flies on wings that are blue. Blast the bad guys with a boom. Look out! Here comes the Blue Beetle.
Thank you. You know what? I will say I 110% echo that theme song being used for this, because that's totally my view of what Blue Beetle is. Go for it.
Hey, Jaime is the Peter Parker of the DCU.
Absolutely.
And, teenager dealing with the problems of being a teenager, also dealing with a hero. Not sure what he can do, how he can do it, but here's the cool thing. Beetle has his own flair to it. He has his own style that does set him apart from Spidey, does set him apart from the other team books, and it's this flair that keeps me coming back, keeps me wanting more. I love the personalization that this one gives me. Hoorah! Beetle is a fun title. It's a great title, and I am so glad we have this.
Proof that you can retell an origin in a new way that is just as interesting as the first time around. I am glad that not every book started us on the ground floor. But for Jaime's story, his relationship with Paco and Brenda, and the Scarab, all that would change a bit due to the way the world has changed. I like that there is more history to the Scarab, and that it's more of a character than it was before. Tony Bedard's a writer that I really enjoy, and I'm curious to see more of Jaime's relationship with the Green Lanterns explored over time. I agree with your Spider-Man link. I think it's the type of a character. He's not cookie cutter to Spider-Man, but what it is you got this young, exciting teenager who, there's something about him. He's got the same vulnerabilities that you expect from that era. He's got a friendship group that's interesting. I love the way that his interactions with the Scarab feels like a teenager would. And it's fun. There's something about this character and this book that just has always felt fun. And the costume looks cool. He reminds me of what it was like when I first read Spider-Man. It's that kind of feel. And DC needs a character like this. I've always felt that he's DC Spider-Man, and he's just great. And I don't mean the powers aren't the same, and I get that, but I mean it's that age group, that kind of feel and vibe. And it's yes, they have the Teen Titans, and I'm not saying that he's a replacement for those characters. He just has a viewpoint and a way of carrying himself that I think just has that fun factor that I really like. Legion Lost?
With me, it's weird. I actually kind of like Legion Lost over Legion of Superheroes. But I enjoy the Legion of Superheroes, that style that these heroes are and how they are from the future. They look at life a little bit differently. But the fact that these guys are trapped in our time kind of makes me like them more. And it's a weird connection that I like the difference, but I like the similarities to the Legion of Superheroes. We're kind of getting, to me, the best of both worlds. We're still getting that Legion of Superheroes style, that same Legion story, the same kind of, the Legionnaires are who they are, but they're in such a different environment that it makes me really appreciate the Legion of Superheroes title. So these are two titles that kind of are interwoven and intermeshed with me, that it's making me enjoy what is cool about Legion of Superheroes by having them here and having them in their own time.
Being trapped away from those that you rely on can force you to step up and learn new things about yourself. I am so sad to see Fabian Nicieza leave because I liked his exploration of how this disease and the potential for destroying the human race was affecting the team. That is a huge responsibility to come back to prevent something, to fail, and to be stuck watching the results of that failure unfold around you. I like seeing them deal with the teammates no longer being accessible that they usually rely on, and how each member had to find unique ways to provide skills to compensate for, like, no Brainiac, for example. I loved Spider-Girl from Tom DeFalco, so I have high hopes for his take on this team moving forward. This has been a book I've been really enjoying too, and I agree with you. I don't know if it's right to say I like it more. I just think it's different. Because we'll talk in a minute about Legion of Superheroes, and I'm going to tell you why I love that book. I like this book just as much in very different ways. It fits a different place for me than the regular Legion book is. So I don't know if I'm in that place with it, but there's nothing wrong with you feeling that way. I mean, I think that's cool. So, last book, Jim, is Legion of Superheroes.
You know what? With so many characters, I should be lost and confused, but the creative teams have always done a wonderful usage of team dynamic to keep someone like me in the loop and enjoying the process. Right there, that kind of really sums up Legion of Superheroes. I should be lost and confused. There's so many different lads and lasses and kids and whatnot that I'm not that smart. I should be lost on it, but they do a great job of laying everything out for me. They do a great job of a nice consistency of who they are, what they do, how they do it, that I feel comfortable with all these people. I've become a Legionnaire. I've become a really fan of them. I'm actually wearing my ring right now as we talk. I had to put it on when we started to talk about them. But this is, a great team dynamic story. Plus, you get that cool future environment. It's kind of it's a nice change from what we have in the DCU, but it has its own little issues in it. And again, it's that personalization, learning process of who the Legion of Superheroes are, who their villains are, what these different people can do. This has been something that comics should be. It's fun. It's, enjoyable. It's something I want to keep doing. I want to keep reading. And Legion of Superheroes really, just inspires me to want to read more, to go find more, to pull up old stories, find out the quote-unquote classic Legion of Superhero stories and have those and read them.
Paul Levitz is really speaking to me in his writing. I loved his Huntress mini, so I am excited for his upcoming work on World's Finest. I've also enjoyed how this Legion is a nice mix of the classic characters, but also new ones introduced from Legion Academy. We are seeing old romances and relationships being dealt with, while seeing the new blood finding their own place within this team. This is a Legion cut off from our present day. It's interesting how the Legion seamlessly folds into new continuities throughout the history of the team, because that's something that this isn't the first time this has happened to the team, and it just kind of seems to work. I like that. It makes sense that the future would gradually blend into the echoes of the past, and it fits like time travel stories that I've read too. History just kind of fixes itself along the way. This is a team book that is filled with great art, high character drama, and a sense of continuity and progression for the characters. Characters love, hate, get married, divorced, have kids, face tragedy, and all these things have happened before to them, and they still matter to this day. I like that the history is still there for them. It's an experience that just works. I haven't read all of the Legion, yet there's something comforting to know that I can read as much as I want along the way, and it still matters. Like, all of it was still a part of all this, and there's something I like about that. And it's actually one of the few titles that we can say that about in the New 52, and that's not a knock on the other ones. I like the new freshness and everything that they've done. It's cool. I just love that this one just kind of, in the midst of all this change and everything, and the changes that have gone in this book, it still has that legacy to it that's really strong and rich, and I like that. I mean, it's this title is a great example of how you do something like this, and I'm glad they didn't reboot this. I did do a full reboot. It was a good move with this title.
They didn't need to. It fit. Everything, as you said, it's just everything's flowing through. This isn't the first time it's happened to them. It's not going to be the last. They will keep going on, and because being so far in the future, their past can change constantly, and as long as there was superheroes before them, it really doesn't affect them that much. And I like seeing that. this was, it's funny because I say Legion Lost is my favorite of the two, but I so enjoyed Legion of Superheroes that it's hard for me not to say it's my favorite of the two, because I am so excited about the Legion, and I'm excited because of this title. It's a weird feeling and emotions that I get from these two titles, and maybe I actually probably should start thinking of them as separate titles, and that way it may be actually probably more sense to me to think of them as separate titles the way I look at things, because these are different titles, but these are those same characters coming back and dealing with a different environment. And so
I guess for me, what the distinction with this is, and I guess there's other books where, I think it's easier to compare like a Batman title because they're all set in the same time frame, currently happening. With this and the regular Legion, with this and Legion Lost, I should say, they're set in two different time periods, which is, to me, I think has given them both a very drastically different theme. So I don't know. I guess for me, it's easier to separate these and other books. I'm not saying you're wrong for connecting them and doing that. I don't think there's one way to read this.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing my experience with it. So you don't have to feel like, geez, you've got to resolve it the same way I do. You don't. I don't think there's one reading experience for this. I think they're both just terrific books. And I like the fact that they both feel so different. But I guess maybe there is a good way to compare it to things like, we talked about how much we're enjoying the Batman books because they all got a high quality. The Green Lantern books because they've all got a high quality. The Superman books, are getting that right. And those are all books that are, similarly themed. You got this in this case, and I think, again, we've got two high-quality books being delivered here. So I'm hoping going forward we continue with that same feel to them. Because I think these two titles launched very well. This was an interesting experience, Jim. This is the first time, I think, in show history that in 2 shows we've covered 52 books. And then some, with various other commentary along the way. I'm glad we had a chance to do this. I really enjoyed this experience. I'm hoping for listeners, it's kind of hard for us because we haven't done this before in this format. I'm hoping that you guys got something a little different and unique from this. I feel with these titles all being relaunched that this was a neat opportunity for us to do kind of an overview of our experience reading all 52 books, because this has been a very controversial move. Some people loved it, some people hated it, some people wound up in the middle, and there's been a lot of change along the way, and I think we've been able to address some of our concerns, and some of them that we still have moving forward. And, where some of these titles are falling. Overall, though, what do you feel that this relaunch, whatever you want to call it, because I don't know that that's the correct label for it, do you feel that this was a success, Jim?
I personally think it was. I think it's given them an opportunity to really tell some cool stories, move some characters, bring some characters back, change some stuff around, and I like the modernization of it. I like what we're getting and where this universe is going. There is an energy to it, and I'm enjoying that. And I like the fact that they did chop things down to just 5 years, and it is what it is. I don't know. For me, I see it as a success, and I see it as a success as a reader. I'm not looking financially. I'm not looking, business-wise. I'm looking as me as a reader. I am happy they did this. I am enjoying what I'm getting. There's some stuff I wish I still was getting, but I'm like, hey, I'm getting a lot of stuff that I'm really enjoying, and there's a lot of passion for me. There's a lot of stuff that I'm just really digging about this. I think, time will really tell if this is financially a good thing for them. But as a reader, as an enjoyer of comic books, I'm happy they did this.
I am too. It's funny, building off of what you're saying, for me, what ended up happening was I'm finding that I have a lot more of my books out of the relaunch that are top of the stack books. There's a lot less of the titles that are falling in that middle category. And that middle category is not a bad place to be in. They're just, they're average books that I'm enjoying. So that doesn't mean that they're terrible books or anything. I'm enjoying reading them, but they don't have the same bang as your top of the stack titles do, the ones that blow your mind. Like an Animal Man is a top of the stack book. Right. Every issue of that blows my mind. I mean, I'm like, whoa, this is like, I can't wait to read more Animal Man. Not every book is falling into that category. There's a lot of middle of the stack material that I'm enjoying and, I wouldn't get rid of. But a lot more of them are in the top of the stack. So that's where I feel, for me, as a reader, This has been a success because there's a lot more of those titles that are in that place. Unfortunately, some of those titles are being canceled. Now, the canceled titles are being replaced by some titles that I just know are going to plop right into that spot, like Earth 2, World's Finest. I mean, these are books that I know are just, Batman Inc. Those are titles that I know are just going to fall up into the top of the stack spot. And there's some unique titles that are being relaunched that have a potential to maybe be another Animal Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we get some more like that. Because that, to me, has been one of the successes of this, is that we're getting your Swamp Things, your Animal Man, some of these top-tier unique titles that are stepping up their game and being unique. We're getting a Batwing. Like, Batwing, for me, art style-wise, it was a total shock, because I wasn't familiar with the art style beforehand. It's a character who I didn't know much about, and I just think that's been a cutting-edge, top-of-the-stack book, and that's been another new launch. A character that I didn't know. I'm like, am I going to dig him or not? And I do. I'm glad that Marcus 2 is coming on that book. I would have, my preference would have been the original artist staying with the book, because I really have enjoyed that art style. But I'm glad Marcus 2 is coming on that book. I think there's a lot more opportunity to explore some of the unique characters in the DC universe and get them out there. So I'm hoping that we get to see more of that still going forward. As they go beyond, I don't know if they're going to keep it at 52 titles, or eventually I think they're going to have to crack that number. Or if they're just going to keep doing, minis and things to kind of fill in some of the space. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm surprised they stuck with just 52 so far. But maybe that's just kind of like their key number, target number that they're looking for at the moment. But for me, it's been successful. One of the areas I'd like to see some growth is, and I don't know what the answer here is, so I'm not pretending that like I've got some magic wand to say, here's what they should do. But I think there's a lot of unique titles that DC's publishing that can cater to an audience that isn't currently reading comics. All-Star Western's a great example of that. I think immediately that book should be targeted, I think promoted to a different sort of crowd. I think it was a smart move, giving a little bit of a Batman tie with Arkham and using some of that history. I think it's great. I've loved that. I think that's been a great move. But I do think that there's another way to... I think that move is still reaching to the current comic crop. Whereas I think that title, while you want to do that, I think that's a great move, you also want to market that to a different audience, your Western crowd, and people, there's a fan base for Western novels, that audience should be targeted heavily for that. I think there's a lot of books in DC that are fantasy. Demon Knights, great example of a title that I think should be catered to your Terry Brooks crowd. I think it's a different sort of book. I think there's an accessibility. As fans who are currently reading modern day DC books, we like the ties to that rich past, but realistically, you don't have to be reading anything to read Demon Knights.
Right.
That's a ground floor fantasy book that you can throw out to people playing EverQuest, or World of Warcraft. I think those are ready-made crowds to potentially... Is everybody going to read that book? No. But you put preview pages up on those websites... you're going to get people, your people that are playing Skyrim and stuff like that. I think you've got a crowd there that might potentially read this book. And I'd like to see that type of thing. So that's an area where I think they've made strides in the right direction. There's been media buzz surrounding this. You're seeing it appear in papers. You're seeing it start to, there's this relaunch was something that got a lot of attention on radio shows all over the internet, and on television. So it's cool to see that get some buzz. I feel that is a stepping stone, though. I feel it's a step in the right direction, not a leap. And I want to see more steps, in the right direction of getting a new audience. Because I think that there's an opportunity to create a new newsstand. And I don't know what it is. I do think this is something where Daryl Taylor and I were having a great conversation about how, there's probably some interns or something that, could come up with a great free marketing idea on how to use social media to buzz some of these books and places where you should be doing ad placements that would be free to just throw something in, some kind of underground movement to some of these titles. And that's the type of thing I'm looking for out of this. If that makes sense. It's that wacky marketing frenzy that is something different, something underground that nobody's tried before, targeting people who aren't currently reading. And I don't know what it is. I'm not pretending I have the magic wand answer. I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do. I'm looking for some leadership in the comics industry with that, because I do think that the product's at an all-time high. I think our sales numbers aren't. You know, when we look at what a top-selling book is, it's still DC and Marvel vying for, and then everybody else, vying for the same crowd. We got some lapsed readers back from this, I think, and I think that was a successful thing, but I want to see more. I want this industry to be around for a long time. And, you know, when you and I can go through and talk about 52 books like this, and realistically, we had nothing, you know, there was not a book that was a terrible book out of the batch. You know, the worst thing we would say, that was an average read. You know, I mean, that's a pretty successful launch to me, when that's the worst thing you can say is, it's an average read. You know, enjoyed it. It's in my list. I'm glad that it was there. I'm enjoying following the character. It's not, you know, shooting me through the roof, but it was decent material. You know, I mean, that's a testament to the creative teams that are behind this, because that book that I'm saying might be an average book, for somebody else could be their favorite title. You know, just because that was the character or the concept that they've been waiting to connect with. That's what I mean. I feel like the qualities here in this list, when you look at it, even with the changes that are coming, there's a lot of potential in this. So, I don't know. I'm glad we had an opportunity to do this. I was surprised we did it in 2.
I am too. I'm actually a little bit shocked that we were able to pull it off.
It was one of goals. I was like, we got to push this in 2, just because I want to see if we can do it.
Well, initially you were saying, hey, we'll do it in 1.
Well, yeah, that quickly changed. But you were saying like 4, I think.
Yeah, I kind of thought that it was going that way.
So we wound up somewhere in the middle. Sort of.
Holy caffeine!
Jim, I want to shout out the Wild Pig Comics and Comic Geek Speak Super Wild Pig Show, which takes place on Saturday, May 5th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sunday, May 6th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Embassy Suites Hotel at 121 Centennial Drive in Piscataway, New Jersey. 32 artists will be on hand to take sketch requests, sign autographs, and sell their merchandise. The guest list thus far includes Peter David, Lee Weeks, J.K. Woodward, Ruby Nebris, and Don McGregor. The show will feature 60,000 50-cent comics from the Silver Age to present, the bulk of them in alphabetical order. That's huge. 2,000 trades at 50% off, including new releases, comic and comic-related magazines at 50% off, and hundreds of additional trades at $5 a piece. 4 raffles will be held throughout the weekend. Raffles will be held on Saturday at 1 and 4 p.m. A third raffle will be held on Sunday at 1 p.m. The bonus raffle will be held at Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Bonus raffle tickets go for $1 a piece. No limit on tickets purchased. Paid admissions will receive a ticket for the regular raffles at the door. Customers can purchase additional regular tickets for $1 a piece. Again, no limit. We'll be posting regular and bonus raffle items online every week. The majority of the prizes are DC Absolute Editions and Marvel Omnibuses. Bonus raffle prizes will consist of new statues and high-grade Key, Silver, and Bronze Age comics. Admission. We strongly encourage customers to pre-order a weekend pass for $10. Passes can be purchased at www.wildpigcomics.com. Here are the perks one receives upon presenting their pre-ordered weekend pass at the door. 3 raffle tickets, which will be included in all of the 3 regular raffles. Check-in starting at 9 a.m. A separate line will be set up for customers who pre-ordered. Hence, the doors open. They will not have to wait on the regular admission line. Free Comic Book Day. Customers who pre-ordered will be given the first shot at the free Comic Book Day comics. Because that is Free Comic Book Day, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Each customer may take 1 copy of each book available. Original Art Raffle. Customers who pre-ordered weekend passes will also be entered into a raffle for original art donated by guests and friends of the show. The raffle will be held on a Comic Geek Speak episode at the end of April. Thus far, Danielle Corsetto, Erica Hesse, and Bill Ellis have offered to donate color sketches. J.K. Woodward has offered to donate an original page from a forthcoming project. Regular admission at the door is $10 per day. This includes 1 raffle ticket. Weekend passes purchased at the door on Saturday are $15 and include 2 raffle tickets. There's an after party, Jim. It's going to be at O'Brien's Tavern, which will host an after-con party on Saturday night, starting at approximately 8 p.m. Karaoke will be available. Directions to the tavern are on the website. The hotel has set aside a room block at a lower rate. The reservation link is posted on our website. Further information regarding the show, the hotel, directions, the guest list, the raffles, etc. can be found at www.wildpigcomics.com. That's awesome that there's a convention going on Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
That's something that, to me, I'm pretty excited about. I'm looking at my schedule. I'm going to try to attend that because that just, I mean, it's a $10 admission. And you get 3 raffle tickets just for the $10 admission to all of those cool things. I mean, that in itself, the $10 being a part of the raffle's worth it. And that's not even the convention. You get 32 artists that are going to be on hand. I mean, Peter David, Lee Weeks, J.K. Woodward. I mean, these are names that are huge. J.K. Woodward's going to be on that upcoming project. It's Star Trek and Doctor Who. They're doing a crossover, which for me, I'm a Doctor Who junkie. And J.K. Woodward, I love his artwork from Fallen Angel. I'm a Fallen Angel fan. And honestly, I loved the work at DC. I think because the story progressed, and then we had this great painted art style that J.K. Woodward does, I honestly think the book improved when it went over to IDW. That isn't a knock on the work that came previously, but it was a series that I think not only it just benefited. I know you read some of the IDW stuff like the Angel material. You've read some of that. I think that the comics that they're producing over there are just a top quality. I read all their Doctor Who stuff as well, and I'm reading their Star Trek series. I don't know how much you've read. I know the Angel material you've read from them.
Yeah, I've read the Angel stuff. I've read I've read a couple different titles from IDW, so it's a good title. It's a good company.
Are you reading the Legion Star Trek crossover that's currently going on from them?
No, I'm not. And
you gotta do. You're missing.
No.
You got to grab that.
I've had enough people tell me, "Oh, dude, you got to read this," and so I think it's going to be something that I'm going to start doing in trade and just follow it that way.
That Who Star Trek crossover, there's no way I'm missing that because the quality for Legion Star Trek has been so high that, hearing now that they're doing a Doctor Who those are two natural. I mean, it's going to be, I think the Borg and the Cybermen are going to be in it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean...
okay. That sounds good.
I mean, there's no way I'm going to be missing that. I mean, it's going to be awesome. So it's kind of a natural series for me. Anyway, that's I'm excited for that comic convention and want to shout out J.K. Woodward doing the artwork on that upcoming Doctor Who Star Trek crossover. Because for me, I'm picking that one up right away. As we mentioned in the beginning of the show, in March, we are celebrating 6 years of the show and our 300th episode. We have partnered with DiscountPartySupplies.com to offer a special celebration package. To enter, we have 300 shows coming up and 6 years. That's a big happening for us.
That's huge.
Yeah. We want you to show your creativity and sense of humor. We've already been getting entries from this. Choose from any of the themes of 300, 6 years, or anniversary. You can draw, record, write what your favorite hero or villain would do to celebrate or even ruin our anniversary. A parody of any of the show's episodes, themes, or topics. This can include, but is not limited to, making your own spoiler warning, show intro, etc. You can create bullets between the show segments. Create an article or review of a favorite book or topic that you want to shout out that we've covered so far, or that you wish we had or will down the road. Any other creative way you want to celebrate or have fun with our upcoming anniversary. I want this to be open-ended so anyone can enter. So please, if you've got some creative idea where you're like, go ahead, have fun doing this, just do it. The idea is we want you to be a part of this. You can enter as many times as you want before the end of February. We are going to randomly pick from the available entries for the prizes below. First prize will be a trade paperback of the winner's choosing from InStockTrades.com. And they will also get a Green Lantern party package from DiscountPartySupplies.com. This package includes a green table cover, Green Lantern balloons, a set of 4 Green Lantern glow-in-the-dark rings, Green Lantern stickers, green and black streamers, a package of black, and a package of green balloons, 8 lantern invitations, 8 lantern plates, 8 lantern napkins, 8 lantern cups, 8 lantern balloons, 24 candles, and plastic cutlery. Second and third prizes get a choice from our listener and show-donated comic and trade grab bag. Entries are due by the last day of February in any time zone and should be emailed to ragingbullets@gmail.com with the heading 300th Contest. Recorded entries may be sent in via the same method or via our show voicemail line, which is 1-440-388-4434, or Dr. Norge on Skype. And please, at the beginning of that, let us know that it is for the 300th contest. So we'd love to have you a part of that, but that's the 300th episode. It's coming right up down the line.
I know.
We're at 295, so we're like 5 away.
Wow.
5 away till Knightfall, dude. That's a big...
I know.
I'm excited. Once again, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember, over at DCBService.com, they're still doing that amazing 50% off bundle. All 52 number 8 issues are only $80.74. Great way to save money at 50% off. Also, 75% off the bundle of the 4 brand new number 2 issues of Saucer Country, Fairest, The New Dead Guardians, Dominic Laveau, Voodoo Child, all from Vertigo. So those are some great ways, and we're going to be discussing those books on the show. So please feel free to pick those up and join in our discussions on those particular titles. And remember, they are a DC Comics digital partner. Over at InStockTrades.com, they're offering 40% off all DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers, 50% off all archive editions, plus they have deals up to 80% off on the website, so please make sure to be checking out InStockTrades.com. Knightfall, all 3 books are available there, so you can get Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3, Night's End, from their website. So if you don't have it, 300, 301, and 302 are going to be tackling those books. Great chance to revisit those before we discuss them on the show. Jim, I don't know what we're doing next week. We haven't, actually, it's kind of nice. We haven't discussed that yet. We're going to take a look at some of the comics that have been released, and we're just going to have fun. What do you say we pick 2 issues each and tackle them cover to cover?
Roger, roger.
So you pick 2 books, and I'll pick 2 books. We'll let each other know what they are, and we'll chat about them. 2 books that we haven't talked about in a while that we just kind of want to ramble about. And we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Fated for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. Hawkman.